Tampa City Council back in session. Roll call, please.
Carlson.
Here.
Maniscalco.
Here.
Dingfelder. Citro.
Here.
Vieira. Miranda.
Here.
Goods.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you, madam. Mr. Shelby, will you give some direction for today's session so the public will know how we're going to proceed, sir?
Okay, well, first of all, Mr. Chairman, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney, on behalf of the chair. I hear a lot of noise on the second floor. Could we ask people who are in the building, whether you're on the first floor or you're on the second floor, out of courtesy to the people who are in the building with you and want to hear this meeting, and out of courtesy to the people who are speaking with City Council, I ask if the public can remain quiet. There are signs on the second floor asking for quiet, please. If there is overflow on the first floor, please also be mindful if you are in any public areas to keep your voice down as much as possible so the public is able to watch, listen, and view this meeting from both the second floor and the first floor, as well as those people who are watching at home, because the noise does spill over into City Council's chambers. That's number one. Number two, Mr. Chairman, my understanding is that there are a substantial number of people here. One person, I've been informed by the clerk, who was registered but wasn't on this morning, actually is on virtually by phone when public comment should come. What is council's pleasure and what is the chair's direction with regard to how we're going to proceed with the presentations?
This afternoon, I'd like to proceed with staff's presentation first. That we will give the public and those downstairs a chance to weigh in on what staff is trying to get across to this council for the decision that we may need to make today on something. I don't know what that may be. After that, we will let the public then chime in, and then, of course, council members will have their chance and opportunity to chime in on any more questions as it relates to the public's concerns.
Thank you, sir.
All right, staff. Gentlemen, as you know, I put this item on the agenda to be discussed a while ago because what this one councilman deems as a crisis in this county, in our city, and across the country. There is a crisis, though. There's no doubt about that. When I go to the McDonald's and Burger Kings in the morning and I see mothers taking their kids, washing them up in the McDonald's bathrooms, and I'm getting calls from some the level people at McDonald's saying that, you know, this is true. There's a problem in our city when folks are in cars sleeping in parking lots. We have a problem. So that's why I definitely want to hear what staff is talking about. I have a lot of questions concerning in the memo that was sent out to me, but I think that's something we can do. So with that further ado, I'll turn it over to staff to tell us and give us a presentation.
The memo that you're referring to is the memo that I sent. I think all of you have gotten by now. We were asked to research the ordinances for St. Anna, California and St. Paul, Minnesota. So I pulled those ordinances. I provided a summary in the memo of those ordinances. Those ordinances were enacted both at the end of 2019. So I also did a nationwide search to see if there were any other ordinances enacted around the same time based on the same circumstances. And I found a statewide ordinance that was enacted in Oregon, and I've also provided that information to you. All of those ordinances limit increases to 3%.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I've just been informed, I was just down on the second floor, and nobody on the second floor could hear the presentation thus far. So I'm just going to ask council if you could just give us a few minutes just to make sure that the audio is being able to be heard by the people who are downstairs.
I will start over when it's ready.
They're going to give you a heads up, Mr. Shelby?
I'm going to go down, I'm going to go back down.
Gentlemen, hang tight. It's gonna be a long day, John. Yeah, and nights. All right, Ms. Johns, you can continue.
You want me to start over so that everyone? Rebecca Johns, Legal Department. We were asked to look into rent control ordinances in Santa Ana, California, and St. Paul, Minnesota. I have pulled those ordinances and provided them to you in the memo that I provided to council. The details of those ordinances are in there. The ordinances are attached. I also looked nationwide to see if any other ordinances were enacted around the same time. Those ordinances were enacted the end of 2019. End of 2021, I'm sorry. The state of Oregon had in 2019 enacted a statewide rent control ordinance. Between the three ordinances, the limitations range from a flat 3% increase to 7% over the CPI. All of the ordinances also contain exceptions. Some of them contain procedures for landlords to request additional increases over and above the limitation. Those details, again, are in your memo, so I won't go into a lot of that. Those ordinances were enacted pursuant to the specific state laws of those states. In Florida, we have a Florida statute that governs what needs to be done in order to enact a rent control ordinance in Florida. I think by now everybody is kind of familiar with those requirements, but I will still go through and summarize. In order to adopt the ordinance must contain a finding that there is a housing emergency so grave as to constitute a serious menace to the general public, and the ordinance is necessary and proper to eliminate the housing emergency. The ordinance must expire in 1 year. The ordinance must be approved by a referendum of the voters of the city of Tampa. This statute was enacted in 1977, and nothing has occurred since the statute was enacted. No jurisdiction in Florida has enacted a rent control ordinance, so we have no guidance as to how those requirements would be interpreted by a court. A housing emergency is not defined by the statute. There's no guidance as to what constitutes that level of housing emergency. There have been some court cases prior to the statute that talked about a housing emergency, and those were dealing with housing shortages in times of war. So that is an open question as to what would rise to that level. The statute does contain exceptions for 3 types of property that you cannot impose rent control on. That is a seasonal or tourist unit, a second housing unit, and a luxury apartment building. A luxury apartment building is defined as one that in 1977 has an aggregate rent of $250 a month. So there's no guidance as to how that translates to 2022. Again, because nothing has happened regarding the statute. So if you were to assume that you take that to present value, I am not an economist or a mathematician, but I think that takes you to about $1,150 a month. So an apartment building whose aggregate rent is over $1,150, if that's the way the court would interpret it, would be exempt from any rent control.
Let her finish and we'll take questions, Mr. Carlson, Bill Meyer.
I'm almost done. We've also summarized the potential challenges that the city could potential claims that the city could face if they enacted this ordinance. It is up to the city, it is their burden of proof to prove that the city adopted this ordinance in accordance with every element of that statute. Typically, it would be up to the challenger to prove that. But this statute specifically places that burden on the city. So because of that, we just want to reemphasize that because of the lack of clarity and the lack of guidance for interpretation for the statute, that if council elected to go this way, that we would strongly recommend that you had studies and data that you rely on when you determine a housing emergency, and that we are sure that we met every element of that statute. We have Abby and Kayon and Nicole Chavis here to talk about the programs that the city is doing. We have a new program being launched on March 1st that does provide rental assistance. So they are here. That's out of my wheelhouse, but they are here to talk about those programs. But if you have any questions for me regarding the statute, I am available.
I think let's, Councilman takes a question from you first, because I've got several for you, and we'll deal with housing later. That's a total different issue. We'll go, Mr. Carlson, you were first, and then we'll go round table with each councilman. All right?
Is it fair to say that the state law is a preemption, not a roadmap?
I don't think it would prevent the city from enacting the
But
ordinance.
since no other city has implemented this since the 70s, wouldn't it be fair to say that this was put in place to try to stop cities from putting, I mean, if we did not have a state law preempting this, we might have a multi-year, we might be able to consider a multi-year rent cap or rent control or whatever, but because of the state law, we can't do any of that, right? I mean, it's 1 year, and it has to be in a, and it doesn't say what would happen the second year.
Well, you could enact another one for another year, but that would also require going back to the voters.
And that would depend on the timing of when the election was and whether it's a special election and other things like that. And also, is there any I mean, basic economics, if somebody's gonna raise their rents 10 or 20% a year, or some people have had more, between now and November, nothing is to stop a landlord from doubling that, right? If a landlord if they're planning on raising it 20% and they think that they're going to be prohibited from a year from raising it, there's nothing to stop them from raising it 40 or 50% in advance, correct? Or raising it afterwards.
There's nothing legally right now that would
No, but if we put this on the ballot, even if it's approved in November, between now and November, landlords could do whatever they want. So if they think that this is coming, they'll just double their increase, and then it'll put more people on the street, hurt more people. And then after it's over, 12 months later, we're gonna have more people on the street because they're gonna raise the rates by double, maybe again. And so it seems to me that it just exacerbates the problem. The question is, there's no prohibition for landlords doing anything they want until this is impacted, and it only likely would be for 1 year. So before and after, they can do whatever they want with the rent increase.
That is correct. I do want to point out that there is a bill right now working its way through the legislature to remove that 1 year limitation. That has been attempted a few times before, and it has failed in the legislature. So I don't know whether it will pass this time, but that would get rid of the 1 year.
Yeah, my suggestion.
But yes, you're correct. Nothing would prevent anyone from doing anything.
Several of my colleagues have talked about preemptions in the past, and we're very frustrated when people say, why are trees torn down? And we say the state has stopped us. Why is it that you guys can't pass a multi-year rent cap? Because the state's stopping us. Even if we put this on the ballot, there's nothing that we can do to prohibit rates from being increased before and after. And this could be a disaster for people who can barely afford to pay rent right now, as I see it.
All right, we'll go Mr. Vieira.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And it's interesting, I do think that in effect, there is some reason there that established state law, it may not be a formal preemption, but it is in effect a preemption towards doing anything that is effective. When I read about this $1,150 in effect cap, that it wouldn't, even if we were to move forward with something, that let's take aside all the legal entanglements, let's just set that aside. If we were to only deal with rents below 1,150, the applicability and effectiveness of it at best would be very, very limited from what I understand. I think further research needs to be done on this. But I think what is obvious here is, regardless of whether or not we are in effect preempted or whatever word you want to use, that and we all seven of us agree on something that is very open and obvious, which is that there is a lot of pain out there. There is amazing, historic, brutal pain that is out there with people getting, imagine you're earning 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, $15 an hour, right? $25,000, $30,000 a year, and your rent gets increased. Your rent gets increased 10, 12% of your gross pre-tax income. That's out of control, and this is for housing. We're not talking about the cost of a luxury. This is for basic housing. So I think it's important that we see what we can do and whatnot, and that we do it in a robust way. I know last week Councilman Dingfelder, who's not here today, moved forward with some potential motions addressing some issues. I think the way I look at the housing crisis is we need to have what I call the emergency care. Right? That a patient goes to the hospital and says, I need that triage care right here, right now. We got to look at that and things that we can do right here, right now that are going to be effective. And a lot of council members have been very strong on those immediate triage type issues. And then we need to look at long-term with regards to planning so that we encourage planning developments that support affordable housing throughout our city. So they're both things that we have to do. But I want to be able to focus on the things that we're able to do. We live in Florida, right? Which is what I, for lack of use of a better term, a conservative state. And there are entanglements that have been put on us by the legislature for a very, very long time with things like this. We are going to analyze those entanglements, and we have to get through to pass something that would be effective. But I want to focus on the things that we can do, because there is a lot that we can do to address this brutal crisis. Now, it's going on through all of our country with regards to property rate increases, but it's particularly acute and unique to Florida, and it's especially unique and acute to the Tampa Bay area, as we know, with rent prices and property prices going up 25, 26% over the last year. That's a brutal hit to everyday working families who have dealt with, 2 years of COVID, who are dealing with general inflation at 7%, continued skyrocketing healthcare costs. Right now, we may see working families lose the earned income tax credit, the refundable tax credit expansion, and protections under Medicaid. I think there's 10 to 15 million families nationally that use it. So this is in the middle of a storm. So we're trying to see what we can do, but I think we all recognize that it is a brutal crisis. So thank you.
Madam Scott, recognize?
I mean, if this is not an emergency, if this is not a menace to society, I don't know what is. If you look at the cost of living, okay, car insurance rates are very expensive in Tampa because of fraud, because of other things, because whatever. Car insurance, gas is expensive, food is expensive, inflation is affecting everything. And housing, the most important thing right next to food and good health, is out of control. I've looked at different numbers since the beginning of 2021 to now, where housing costs have increased 25 to 30%. Depends what you read. I've read 24, I've read 31. But one of the fastest rise in the entire country. And yes, we call ourselves Tampa Bay, and we have a lot of good things going for us, but for the basic core fundamentals, which again is housing the people in this community, people that have either lived here their entire lives, that are struggling to afford to live in the city, or people that are moving here, and they're barely able to make rent, or so much of their paycheck is going to rent. I can understand a landlord raising the rent maybe 3 to 5% a year. I know that there's no cap. Everything that you've mentioned already, 1977, and nothing has this, and the books and the state and the preemption and everything. But you have the greedy, some greedy property owners. I mean, one lady came earlier and her rent went up, I think, $500 a month, where wages are not going up to match that. I can talk about minimum wage. I can talk about since 1970, because I've studied that far back, the cost of living in the last 52 years has not matched rate increases in wages. The minimum wage should be, I've calculated different numbers, but it's nowhere, what it is now is nowhere near where it should be. While everything has gotten more expensive, people are still getting paid too little. I know landlords and property owners that say, I have great tenants, why would I want to raise their rents and hurt them? And others that say, they sign the lease, they sign the contract, and they'll raise it $500, $600 a month, and they don't care. And others that say, okay, they'll stay within a 5% margin. That's their personal choice. You know, I share different values. I'm not a landlord, I'm not a property owner, but if I were in that position and I own properties outright and I was able to keep things affordable, I would, instead of going by how the market dictates. I understand the demand is there, but at the same time, people have mentioned Robles Park, people have mentioned other public housing projects that are being demolished and people are being displaced because we have a housing shortage. Where are we going to put these people? People that will be homeless, if not they're very close to becoming homeless, because again, you know, what they earn on top of how expensive living is in general here, they're getting burdened by just having a place, you know, a roof over their heads. People that have roommates and they're sharing bedrooms and whatever it is to keep costs down. You know, I mean, how can we say that, you know, things are great in Tampa, which, you know, we have a lot of good things going for us, but at the same time, the foundation, housing, keeping people in our community off the streets. I mean, again, if this is not an emergency, then I don't know what is. I mean, we have people on the verge of homelessness. We've heard just a handful of stories, and we will be hearing more. I have people in my family that rent, and I worry about them. I rent. And again, you know, I mean, the landlord can do whatever. Councilman Carlson mentioned, you know, if we do something and we put it in a special election or on the next ballot at the next election, in the meantime, there are people that they can raise the rents as they please without a cap to say, well, we raise it now, we protect ourselves, and the demand is so high that somebody is willing to pay for it. I think it's a wrong attitude. I know every situation is different. There are people that have rental properties that use that income to pay the mortgage to the bank, and that's their long-term investment. Other people bought properties cheap or own them outright, and they're raising the rents just for the sake of raising the rents. I would ask them to have a heart, to be more compassionate, and because, I mean, there's so many situations and so many stories, and again, so many people on the verge of homelessness, and it's such an important discussion and topic that it can't be ignored. And I'm running out of time. Thank you.
Citro, recognized.
We're talking about symptoms. We're not talking about the cure. People who earn better wages, they'd be able to afford homes and more expensive apartments. We're in a situation where we're damned if we do, damned if we don't. My opinion, if we're going to do anything, draft up an ordinance, let's review it, let's send it out to the people to vote on and prepare for legal battles. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I concur. Mr. Miranda, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, Tampa's not unique in any of these circumstances. This is a countrywide phenomenon that's happening. Tampa is more in the spotlight because of the costs of the influx of individuals who have come in and moved in and buy something that for us was unimaginable. But when they sold something for twice the price and they bought something here for half the price, they thought they had fantastic opportunity. And I'm talking about something that's worth 30 million somewhere, it's worth 11 million here. So when they sell a house somewhere for $1.5 million, they buy one for $500,000 that was at $250,000. That causes the monopoly to go up. Everything around it goes up. Not too many years ago, you could buy a lot, not in all the districts of the city of Tampa, but certainly where I live, for about $25,000. That same lot today, depending on where you're at, and that same district that I live in, is between $150,000 to $200,000. So it ain't not only the building, it is the amount of dirt that's available for you to have a building. And if you're in the market and you realize what's going on, you have people calling all the time, look, if you want to sell your own house. And when you get to be my age, they think you're going to die, so everybody wants to come on and we're going to see if you want to buy out right now. I must get 5 or 6 quotes from on my own where I live every week telling me if I want to sell. And if you want this, and whatever you do, don't get a reverse mortgage. I don't care how bad off you are. I'm going to tell you just like it is. I got stopped by a lady the other day, and this is a true story, and I don't want to tell you who she is, at Walmart. And she said, "Are you Mr. Miranda?" I said, "No, I'm Charlie Miranda. Mr. Miranda was my father." And we started talking. She says, "I need some help." I said, "What is your help?" She said, "I made a mistake and I got a reverse mortgage." And that's another problem we have in society. Because what that does is not only caps you, I think the interest rate, I don't know, from 12 to 18% or something like that. And then they keep adding every month. By the time you get to the point, you're paying, if you get a $100,000 loan, by the time you pass away, let's say the house is worth 300, you pass away at 150, not only have they get all the loan, they make the other 150. So what it is, it's just a hardship, and families have got to talk to family members. I think that's one of the problems we have. When you have a problem, discuss it first of all with your family. See if anybody wants to come in and help. That's number one. I've been there, I know. The next thing is when appropriate rents and 3% increase, there's nothing wrong with that. The cost of living, that 80% of the cost of living is what they're talking about, what I read there, I assume. And then whichever is the lower of the two, either the 3% or 8% of the cost of living is what they're talking about, a rent increase. However, that has to come with a lot of other things involved. The pricing now, just to repair a roof on a 2x4 shingles, went up like 20, 30, 40, 50. You can buy a 2x4 when I was building them for $2.99. Now they're almost $10. 1 or 2x4, 8 foot long. Times have changed. That doesn't mean that people they need more help now than ever before. But is it legal for us to do this? I don't mind taking my neck out and doing something, but I got to have something to do the legality of the right to do it. Listen, we're in a different world today, and the people need more help than ever before. And I just come up the elevator and I saw the second floor is full of people that have problems. And that's what they're here for. They want to hear which way we can help. And I'm wanting to hear what everyone has to say so we can come to a united consensus of what's going to happen. Most contracts on individuals that have housing or apartments have a 2 to 3% increase. But the problem is they have a house that they can sell today, or an apartment building they can sell today. For the upswing, they don't need it. They can sell it today and cash out and retire. But that's not the answer either, because the next guy who buys it, or the person who buys it, or company who buys it, is going to double the rent. That's what's happening. It's a domino effect on the cost of living of the land, the material, the properties, and that's what's causing part of the rent increase. And certainly there's a little thing called greed also. Thank you.
I'm reminded, Mr. Miranda, when I had a patrol car, I had to go to work real early in the morning. And I would drive to different eateries, so I get a little breakfast sandwich or something. And sometimes I would see mothers taking their kids into the place. I'm thinking they're going to get something to eat, but they're going in there to get them ready for school. In the last couple of weeks, I'm reminded again, because I've seen it, where families are now, as a family unit, going into the facilities of establishment, cleaning the kids up, getting them ready for school, or getting themselves ready for school. That's a problem for me. We can't be cowards, this council, no matter what nobody else does. This council can't be cowards. You hear me say it all the time. If Mr. Dingfellow was here, he says, people sue us all the time. Why are we so afraid of a lawsuit? I get that. The city doesn't want to be liable for things, but it's the people's money. It's their city. They've lived here all their lives. And it ticks me off when I hear people say, well, this is a new Tampa. And those people who've lived here all their life, they got to understand, they got to move out. And then I looked at them and I said, who the hell are you? Why don't you move? I've lived here all my life. I've struggled all my life, and I got to move because my pay hasn't increased. I'm working hard as I can for my family, and all I have. We can't be cowards. We're talking about 1970-something. So we just had COVID. COVID just came about. We had to find a cure. We had to find a cure. We've got to find a cure now. There is an emergency crisis. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care how you flip it. You can say no housing crisis. There is an emergency housing crisis. And it saddens me that I wish I had a magic wand to make it go away right quick, Mr. Miranda, because you see the multitude of people that are getting non-renewals of their apartment complexes. Non-renewals. People who've been good renters. But greed kicks in, Mr. Miranda. Money talks sometimes. The people are hungry. They want results. We can't play the political wire. We love the developers. We love landlords. But we have to find a solution with everybody. Everyone has to come to the table on this. It can't be we run scared chicken because developers, because of the landlords be upset, their family, their lifelong investment. We all got lifelong investments, but some things aren't right. What I hate to keep hearing is when developers, I had a ride along with several developers yesterday. They begged me, Councilman, can you go out and just show us the city? Show us your area. And I go out. And they look at all underdeveloped property, Mr. Renda, that's just sitting, or torn down places that are just sitting. We found 3 big old lots, and Mr. McCray was with me. He took photos. I said, let me show you this big old lot. And they got like, this is almost 3 acres of property right here, city property. We should be developing. These are the things that should be affordable housing, because if it's city-owned, it should all be affordable. If it's city-owned, we should be building. We should be the builders, getting developers to build, giving those incentives. I keep hearing all the time from major developers in the city, Councilman, everyone blames us, it's not our fault. Well, it is your fault. No, it's not our fault. The city doesn't have a plan. When we come to them, we have to kind of figure out. They don't have a study plan, so we come to them, we know what to do. That's what they tell me something different, so I don't know who to believe. We love to do incentive. We love that we can take this back. We'll do this, switch it, barter, switch, and trade. But there's no plan. They say the city has no plan. So that'll be the question to ask. Show us the plan. Show us what the developers are saying that it's not true. Make them show us that what they're talking about. You know what are they saying we need to do? So we can do it if they want to build it. I look at these CRAs, got plenty of money. East Table's got plenty of money. We should be looking at all that money for pre-development. How many people get a jump start to start doing some things? Money's just sitting in there, not being utilized. We have an idea, the people have said it, but yet it doesn't get applied. That's why people are angry. People are hungry. I'm hungry. We know what we have to do. Let the voters decide. If they've got to wait, they understand that. We can't do anything right now. If it takes 4 or 5 more months, we can't do anything. We're tired. But they can't say this council didn't do anything to try to stop the bleeding. They can't say we didn't do anything. And I'm going to put a motion on the floor a little bit later, and I think it needs to be done. If it gets voted down, so be it. I can say that this councilman wasn't a coward. He did what he was supposed to do. He did what the voters asked him to do. I don't care about politics. You know, I can't talk well. I don't talk the fancy talk. I get myself in trouble because of my mouth. I'm the old cop. I'm who I am. I'm trying to work on that. But I have to fight for the people. When I see people are out there surviving. I got 3 guys who lost their place for living in one of my places, Mr. Miranda. So I know how that feels. They can't afford to pay the rent anymore. Some of you guys have met a couple of my friends. Solutions. I say so be it. Wherever it lands, but the public knows that there's nothing we can do probably 4 or 5 months. And that's true. But I do believe that if we do nothing, they'll be angry that we didn't try to do something. Mr. Carlson?
Yeah, and I didn't get this, sorry to go after you, but I didn't make much of a statement earlier. If you look at where we are, why are we here? Because the last administration tore down 2,000 affordable homes instead of building new ones and had no plans to replace them. They implemented a program that people call the whitewashing of Tampa to try to kick people out of the city. The other reason it's happening is that we have an unprecedented number of people moving from other states, especially states where the rent is high and the home prices are high. It's happening all over the state of Florida, and we could talk about why that's happening, but housing prices across the state are skyrocketing, and unfortunately, we're not a country. We can't block our borders. We can't tell people not to move here and pay high prices for that. But as those things are happening, we do have to have solutions, and I want all the people on the second floor and everywhere else to know this city council has been working really hard for 3 years. It's not like we've been sitting back doing nothing. This is something that we heard loud and clear, and many of us have been working on for 20, 30 years individually to try to solve these problems. And it's about building communities, helping alleviate poverty, helping people transition to entrepreneurship. And one of the things I've been pushing for is equitable economic development, which we still don't have. You know, as I've said over and over again, the EDC is about letting 30 people in who pay $30,000 and are friends with each other. We've got to have equitable economic development where everybody is included, and we don't have that yet. But we've implemented it when we started 3 years ago, and we've got to dig out of it. And in the meantime, we had COVID, and now we have this vast influx of people. But I want everybody to know every one of us is committed to this. Where if you look at our numbers, go to tampascorecard.com. Our rates of disparity between men and women and blacks and whites and others is horrible. Our poverty rates are horrible. The fact that the middle class shrank in most of the last 10 years is horrible. This is holding Tampa back from developing. We cannot, and it's inhumane. We have to change this. But what we also have to do is not do what's politically expedient and vote on a proposal that's going to hurt poor people. We cannot do that. It's our requirement, you know, in healthcare, I think they say first do no harm. There are lots of proposals. We heard many this morning, and we probably will hear more again. But the state is preempting us on this. They're the ones that are limiting on this. And if we pass this, if it's passed by vote, it is going to severely hurt people. And I am going to absolutely vote against this, because if we push this through in October and November, when there are thousands and thousands more people on the streets because the landlords have doubled, tripled the rates, even higher than they are now, I'm going to be horrified by that, and I hope everybody else will be. We cannot allow that to happen. We need a policy that's actually going to work to alleviate the problem. We don't need a headline with a title of something that we think is going to work or that people are going to work. One of the policies that people recommend is give 6-month notice before raising your rent. That we put more money into affordable housing, change the zoning, change the parking. There are all kinds of great solutions. Bring the private sector in. Change the way the Tampa Housing Authority works. There are all kinds of possibilities of things that we can do, but we need the real solutions on the table that are actually going to make a difference. If we pass this and this is in place for 1 year, it's going to harm so many people and put so many on the streets. It's going to be terrible. It's going to exacerbate the problem. Who cares about the lawsuits? That's even worse. But the political hit today is that a whole bunch of people want us to pass this, and we know that this is going to hurt the public. So why would we ever pass something that's going to hurt people who are already hurting out there? We know there's a problem. We're committed to solving this problem, but it takes a very complicated series of solutions, not one simple quick hit that looks good on paper and will get us a headline. Thank you, sir.
All right. Point well taken, sir. Point well taken. Mr. Vieira?
And thank you very much. And I appreciate everybody's comments. I think everybody has been very thoughtful, et cetera. You know, my big thing is that if we, and I'm not, you know, philosophically opposed to the idea of, let's say, you know, intervening in the market on issues involving whether it's rents or wages. We have a minimum wage, for example. In 1938, when that was passed, that was quite radical, wasn't it, to say you can't pay somebody less than X, Y, and Z. But my big concern with this is that if we go forward, Councilman Carlson talked about some detrimental issues that may happen, but also which is what are going to be the benefits of it, and are we stating that in a proposal like this, there's more benefit than there actually is? What I'm hearing from people is they want us to invest more in affordable housing, they want us to give more protections, and if we're talking about something that has to be renewed every single year, that is very limited in scope to rents, I believe it is over about $1,100 or under $1,100, you know, we're gonna be potentially, again, this is something that we have to apply scrutiny to, we are potentially making promises that are not going to be consistent with what the payoff on the best day is, and that's something that we have to apply scrutiny to. I'm not afraid of going out there and saying, hey, look, here I stand, this is where I am. I've taken votes in Tampa City Council before. Heck, just a couple weeks ago, I brought back the Tenants' Bill of Rights. Before, we had an issue on the CRA with the downtown Sierra. It was only no vote on it. I'm not afraid to say, hey, look, I respectfully disagree. This is where I'm going on it. But on the other hand, we shouldn't necessarily jump to something right, that is going to have a very, very minimal payoff on the best day possible. So I think we have to apply a great deal of scrutiny to this, as well as look at robust solutions on affordable housing investments and other safeguards that we can take as a city council. So again, there's been a lot of good things that have been said, and it gives us a lot to thoughtfully digest, in my opinion. Thank you, sir.
We're in round two. I didn't see Mr. Manisqualco. Anything else to you, sir?
You know, I appreciate Councilman Carlson's comments on the second round, you know, and why he would not support something. I can understand that legal costs can climb through the roof in a lawsuit, whatever it is. Perhaps, I know that this will be discussed in a little bit, what the city is doing beginning March 1st in regards to rental assistance, deposit assistance, I believe, or you'll go into further details. I believe it's $1 million in that fund. Perhaps we invest more in that fund to directly help people, because we could be spending another $1 million in legal costs, you know, defending a lawsuit. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it gets into the 6-7 figures easily. So I'll, again, wait to hear what Mr. Chairman has said he would propose something. I'll wait to hear the discussion from the others in the room before making any decision. But, you know, I've shared my thoughts. Councilman Miranda has shared his thoughts, and very eloquently. You know, Tampa is not a unique situation. This is happening all across the country, but we're here as Tampa City Council. We're here, you know, in our role of leadership to see what we can do to help. So I'm just going to, again, wait to hear all the discussion.
Else, sir?
I'm fine, you heard my comments.
Anything else, sir?
I'm just thinking out of the box. I don't, when you just mentioned that there was 3 acres of land, of city land available, and I know you're more likely 100% correct, then my next thought when you said that crossed my mind was, well, can the city be a landlord? You said there was money in the CRA. You said there was monies in other things. Can the city go out and build something like quasi Tampa Housing Authority? Build what they can build and fund something that's going to bring 500, 800, 1,000 available units. I'm not going to say that 3 acres is going to support that, but is it possible? I don't know. No one's ever asked the legal department, I guess, if that's possible or not. So those are the things that could be, just out of the conversation we had here, that I imagine that might be available if it can be done. But that takes over a year and a half by the time you get all the hoops done and the building up and running. So these are the things, and right now, it's needed now. Mm-hmm. So how do we do that? That's what's interesting, to see how we can come up with a solution. And again, I'd like to go back to that, can the city be a landlord? I don't know.
Well, I think if you go with those,
Or the city has a subsidy of a contract
Yeah,
for
those,
themselves to have it be a
I think
landlord.
with those land trusts and things like that, I know that the CRA could get a nonprofit. I think the city's working on being a nonprofit and probably could do some things in that manner. We'll let Housing talk to that in a few minutes. If anyone has any more questions for legal, Ms. Edwards has come to me. They have a situation downstairs and they need 5 minutes. Real quickly, Mr. Miranda. So any more questions for legal before we get into the housing, before we get into public comment? All right, Ms. Johns, thank you. You
Thank
stand
you.
by if you would. We're gonna take a 5-minute recess so they can get settled downstairs. We have roughly over 50 people here right now. We stand in recess. call.
Carlson.
Here.
Maniscalco. Dingfelder. Citro.
Yes, ma'am.
Vieira. Miranda.
Here.
Goods.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
All right. All right, we'll jump into the housing, and that way folks will have heard from, I've already heard from Ms. Johns from the city's opinion, then we'll hear from now housing. They can hear what housing, if they have any suggestions, solutions, or proposals. All right.
Good afternoon, Kayon Henderson, Housing Division. I just wanted to talk about some of the programs that Ms. Johns mentioned. We have our Rmap program, which stands for Roadmap, and it's really just looking at rental and move-in assistance program. Looking at where we were last year and where we are now, we certainly were a lot further behind last year. We've looked at different programs to help to address the need that we have. We realize it's a really sensitive topic and want to be sure that we're looking at all the different tools that we have in our toolbox. And so this program really allows us, with unrestricted funds, general funds, to go up to 140% of the area median income. And so what we've been able to do is really reach out to Class B and Class C apartments, reach out to these different landlords and say, if you're going to increase your rent, if there's anybody who maybe has come and said they can't afford that rent increase, help us to get to those individuals and so we can fill that gap. And so a family's not given 30 days to move because they're unable to then afford that rent increase. Other things that we've looked at is while we are having the additional CARES funding, we've looked at how do we ask the federal government for waivers and how do we increase what we incentivize landlords with. And so we looked at some of the programs. We've put some funds set aside to incentivize landlords by paying maybe 5 times the deposit instead of just the first and last month's rent, realizing that a 5 times deposit sometimes is a lot better than them increasing the rent. And so we've really been doing a landlord push, reaching out to landlords, figuring out what it is that the landlord needs to keep that rent at an affordable rate. And so we continue to tweak our programs. We continue to look and strategize as we have those programs going through. That program for Rmap is set to launch on March 1st. We have not had general funds in the past to do that, so we've not had the unrestricted dollars to really be able to expand those programs. And so we'll be looking, a family could potentially get up to $7,000 once we've looked at what that income breakdown could be and what the rent increase could be. And so if that family now has a rent increase of $200 or $300, instead of the move-in, we'll step in and pay that gap.
My only question is that the way things are happening now, it's just not poor people that might need assistance. You have people here, I have TV reporters who've been crying to me about their situation as well. So if you're saying there's a program, I want to make sure there's a program that's going to be able to fit everybody. And we know we always have that marginalized community at the bottom, but everyone is complaining about the rents. And then what it sounds like to me, it's still a temporary fix, basically. Still, even I'm giving this money, it's a temporary, maybe 2-3 months anyway. Still, but that their level of income as far as their work has not increased probably still. So we're going to still be back to back to where we once were.
Right, and that's part of why we continue to strategize and look. We continue to have public input meetings to listen to what the public needs, to listen to the landlords and really strategize on how to keep this affordability issue as controlled as possible. We realize that it is sensitive and we're not going to be able to make all the moves at the same time, but we continue to address what we have in front of us.
That's my only concern, is that we may be able to help 2 to 3 months, but after that diminishes, where are we at now? Because money may be exhausted now. When we're trying to do that, money could all be exhausted. So still, we're still back into a phase of moving forward. How do we help with the rent increases citywide? So that's my only concern. But I'm glad we're looking ahead of the program. But I don't think in the long haul, it's really going to help the need that the people are talking about, though.
And just for clarification, the program will help to up to 12 months. So we don't
12
want,
months?
Correct. We don't want someone to move if they heard that they have a rent increase. And so if someone's going to move in or they're already living somewhere and that rent increased by $200 or $300, we want to be able to assist for that full 12 months so that they're not having to think about where they're going to go 3 months down the line. We want to just create a little bit more stability for that family.
All right. Mr. Carlson,
Yeah, just 3 quick things. One for the public. In addition to all the affordable housing, workforce housing, equitable economic development, other policies we've been working on the last 3 years, this council also worked closely with the interim police chief, Butch Delgado, a few months ago to get rid of renting while black, which was just a horrific program that I think everybody agrees was a bad idea, and thanks to everyone who helped us get rid of that. But I should mention for the public, Kayon is new in this position. How long have you been there?
With the city, 9 years, in this position, about 2 years.
2 years. But anyway, she's, sorry, time flies faster than I remember. but she's relatively new in this position, and she was put there with the purpose of expanding the department and looking at all the different possibilities for affordable housing. And could you just, I don't know if somebody else is going to go through this, but if not, could you just take 30 seconds or a minute and just tell us, how you changed the staff, how you've added new programs, how you've been looking for grants. I mean, just give the public a full range of it. And also for the rental assistance program you just mentioned, where can somebody go to find out about it?
We are, for the rental assistance program, I'll start with that. We are wanting to do a press release just so people know where to apply. It will be an online application because it's unrestricted dollars. One of the things that we really wanted to be sensitive about is not having the same barriers that federal and state funds would include. And so we're going to reduce those barriers for any family who wants to apply. We have really restructured what housing looks like. I'm coming from the homeless point in time count from this morning. We've expanded our housing division to have a homeless outreach team. And so we realize that affordability looks different for everyone. So we have the homeless outreach team, which will now be comprised of 6 staff persons who will really focus on homeless issues and those who are facing at risk of homelessness or actually literally homeless. We also have looked at our public service team that really is going to look at the different services to help people, whether it's a housing specialist to help them find affordable housing throughout the city. And then we have our construction team that we're looking at owner-occupied rehab. So we want to make sure that we're preserving units that are also affordable. One of the things that we have been really grateful for is the $4 million of general fund dollars that we have been able to receive to expand the programs. Our federal and state programs really have restricted us to 80% or below. We realize that that difference sometimes isn't, it's not a whole lot. So some of the programs that we have now, a single individual making $72,000 now qualifies for our program, whereas before, if they made above $38,000, they would not qualify for our programs. So we've continued to look. We're looking, always looking for different ways to structure as far as new construction. We've done our infill phase 2, gearing up for our infill phase 3 program where we'll put some additional single family affordable units. And so we're looking at all the different tools in our toolbox right now to expand affordable housing.
All right, Mr. Edwards has said that, I guess, I don't know if something's wrong with the monitors downstairs, but they want us to speak much louder so the public can hear. A lot of people there, so we want to make sure they hear everything we're talking about.
Okay.
Any questions from Ms. Henderson? Mr. Vieira?
Thank you, sir. I do have a question. I don't know if you know this. Where can we find and what the average rent is in the city of Tampa?
We get studies from the average rent, and that's something that I can provide at a later time.
Okay, great. I'd love to see that because it would appear that I won't repeat, but I'd love to see that. I'm looking it up online, and there's a bunch of different sites, but yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
There's a computer system that the leasing agents look at every morning, and that's how they tell about rents. A lot of people, I found that out about a month ago. It's a system they do. It's really odd, but it's a system. Mrs. Citro.
Let's keep in mind that those numbers will be skewed because as we have heard our statesman over here talking about how many rental properties there are, let's just say in West Tampa, they're not able to do that. So you may have somebody paying $1,500 and then in an accessory structure, somebody else is paying $800. Those numbers will be skewed, I'm sure.
Anyone else from Ms. Henderson? Ms. Travis, did you want to say anything? The new director is going to oversee this ship.
Good afternoon, Council. Nicole Travis, Administrator for Development and Economic Opportunity. It's a pleasure to be with you here and see you in person and not on camera. Just a quick couple notes. You heard from Kayon talking about the unrestricted funds and how important that is. And when Councilman Carlson is talking about, people that are still have decent jobs but are still struggling to pay their rent, and news reporters that you're talking to, those unrestricted funds really allows us to help that population, and where we could use our federal funding for the more vulnerable or 80% and below. So just understand how important that is when you go through your budgeting process, of how important that is to expand that help. The other thing is, I don't want you to, I think you should acknowledge some of the things that you do have in your control and within your purview that does affect affordable housing. This morning you heard from Ms. Feely about parking requirements and some other changes. All those things have effect, just like Councilman Carlson said a minute ago, have an effect on affordable housing. We are using all of our city assets as fast as we can, and you talk about capacity and how fast we can turn things out, using the assets that we have to put RFPs out. Councilman Miranda asked if the city can be a landlord, and I will offer to you that it's not city government's place to really be a landlord, and it's too much. But to the extent possible, we do put out RFPs, and then we put deed restrictions on that property to make sure that the units that go on those properties remain at affordable rent. So Rome Yard is something that'll be coming to you soon. That property, we don't just convey the property, we put deed restrictions on the property through long-term leases that maintains, that has to keep the affordable housing unit. So that's, in a sense, how we are participating in that development landlord building. We could build affordable housing units, but we'll do it at a great subsidy, and it's gonna cost you more. I'll tell you just from past experience, when the city is a developer on any project, usually the projects increase about 35% just because they know that they're going to government. So we really use the tools that we have and use those deed restrictions and the assets that we have, put out the RFPs, and allow the developers and the builders that are in that business to go ahead and build those units. And so, again, you'll see some more things coming up again in a workshop in June with your parking requirements, not just affordable units and not just accessory dwelling units, but housing choices and options everywhere. It's not just affordable housing for our most vulnerable, it's really having a lot of different housing options. And so staff will continue to bring those things back to you as quickly as we can. And when we have those workshops with you, we'll continue moving in. And I think you should give yourselves credit for making those incremental changes to the code when possible to help with the accessibility of units and housing choices. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Travis? Yes, sir, you recognize.
Just for the public's sake, I want to say that Ms. Travis is just on board a couple weeks, and she had worked in Tampa, but it has been in Lakeland and worked on redevelopment in Lakeland. Obviously, she has a lot of great ideas for affordable housing, but we're going to work with her also on equitable economic development,
Absolutely.
which is essential in this community. And I should mention another thing: home ownership rate, 65% statewide home ownership rate. St. Pete is 58%. Tampa is 48%, and African American home ownership is about 38% in the city of Tampa. It's despicable that our numbers are so bad, but we've got a great team that's come on board, and thanks to the mayor, chief of staff, and everyone, and for council putting the pressure on everybody, we're working toward this, and we really need the community to partner with us. The community has great ideas. Some of them, you all in the community study ideas that we might not see and bring them to us. Not every one is going to work. But we want to look at all of them because we want to put the best ideas to work. Thank you.
Citra, I saw your hand, sir.
Nope, except you can't come back to Lakeland.
Mr. Miranda, anything, sir, for Ms. Travis?
No, sir, I'm just reading on some of these ordinances over here, and they're unbelievable.
Well, I think that this council did a great thing, because I kept saying that we had to have non-subsidized money. I think this council did a great thing, that we pushed that issue on last budget, make sure we had money that can help that percentile, which was being left out a lot. So we get to put that to use. I've looked at Ms. Travis every day, talked to people, and she did a wonderful job over in Lakeland, kind of spearheading, getting that thing moving over there, especially with our CRAs over there. So I'm just hoping that we can get it moving, get the train moving real fast. Put the coal on we can to get it moving. But I think I've had several conversations with her. And some of the things we've been talking about, she's on board with that, and she thinks it needs to be done and changed. So I'm happy that she has that mindset. It's good to have somebody who can work with you.
Thank you.
Versus against you. All right, so no other comments. Well, yes, ma'am, Madam Clerk. All right, that's what you wanted, yes, Mr. Moran?
People been down there for a long time. I'm against that, but I mean, online, they can call all they want.
It's just one? That's it? All right, we'll do the online person. We'll get them out the way, then we'll go down to the second floor.
Good afternoon, Chair. I have Misha Robson on the line. Misha, if you can hear me, please unmute yourself. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Misha, and I'm here on behalf of Central Florida Jobs with Justice. We're a coalition of worker-led and community-based organizations that advocates for the rights of working people in the entirety of Central Florida, including the city of Tampa. I am here today to speak on rent stabilization. Throughout the region, we are seeing the effects of climate gentrification. For those unfamiliar, that is the term for when the impacts of climate change, like rising sea levels, coastal flooding, and more powerful hurricanes, increase real estate value in previously undervalued but resilient areas. This can be seen clearly in East Tampa and in the area of Progress Village, where residents suffer from continuous flooding and lack the resources needed to move from the area. We also have the issue of uncontrolled rent increases, which are most enacted by large investment companies like Puritan Place LLC, which is the top filer of evictions in the entirety of the Tampa Bay region. This is something that council hasn't mentioned yet, but it is a real issue for the region. Huge corporations that are not based here and do not have a tie to our community are buying up properties to rent for very high profits. This raises the overall amounts of rentals throughout the region. Their ability to put their own profit over the livelihood of families that have lived in our beautiful city for generations needs to be considered here. People should come first. These conditions, combined with the ongoing pandemic, exacerbate Florida's housing crisis. This leaves our communities facing housing insecurity, displacement, and houselessness. We are seeing this now affecting working class people, people of color, and other marginalized groups the hardest. It is also starting to affect professionals like our teachers, nursing home workers, law enforcement officers, and many others. Professionals and working people that our city desperately needs. Thank you all for taking a needed first step with the Tenant Bill of Rights ordinance last week. And thank you for hearing the community members here today. Rent stabilization will not solve all of the issues facing tenants today. This is a very complex issue to address. It is, however, another much needed step in the right direction. Please do not wait for a perfect plan to take action for the people. Please continue to discuss and make steps in the right direction. Subsidizing rents that aren't affordable is a great resource for some, but it is not sustainable unless the rates are not continuing to jump by hundreds of dollars whenever the landlord or corporation decides that they can get more from those already struggling. Central Florida Jobs with Justice cares deeply about the livelihoods and welfare of working people. As the Tampa Bay Times has reported, the region is currently in a dire crisis, and we are on track to become more rent and burden than Los Angeles. As council has already named, the working people that I represent are hurting and will continue to be further hurt unless steps are taken now. I respectfully ask you all to please continue to move our city's legislation to protect the residents of our community.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to the second floor now. I know we have cleaning personnel down there, so they can kind of be a little closer so we can kind of get it wiped down and get it moving because we have a lot of people to speak, my understanding.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am Sally S.C. Lee with the Volunteer Missionary Society Penny Fund, and I have a short message from God. Help us, Lord. Rarely one is faithful anymore to the cause of righteousness, liberty, loyal, almost vanished from the human race. Everyone lies to their neighborhood, conceited in greed, acts of greed and decay, flattering lips, boastful tongues of crime against humanity, homelessness, poor education, poverty, unfairness to unhoused people by unaffordability, there will be justice. Silence the flattering lips of deception and acts of malice. By owner of land shares, prevail not. Who is Lord over us? God is over us. God said, he shall pervade, bar homelessness. The poor has been plundering, the needy growing. Lord is king, defending the fatherless, the oppressed. People of this land, no one is faithful. Everyone lies to their neighbor, flattering lips and lies, harbor deceptions in their heart. Silence all flattering lips of deception. Who is Lord over us? The poor plundereth. Love, justice, uprightness will see his face. Call out the evildoers. God is my refuge. How can you say, flee like a bird, shooting from the poor neighborhoods and life evils of man towards us being destroyed? God is on his throne, looking down at the leaders. How long will my enemy triumph over me? Your people, evildoers, frustrates plans of the poor. Like silver in a crucible, like gold refined 7 times, I would give thee housing affordability. Build now anew. Together unify thy strength and efforts of good. I, thy Lord, who's over thee. Declare a housing emergency, rent freeze moratorium for 10 years, housing disaster now. For the county of Hillsborough and surrounding counties, the state of Florida and the U.S. shall follow too. February the 24th, we are covered for rent stabilization. Now henceforth begin a housing disaster emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Sally. Thank
All
you.
said to be true. Housing justice.
Thank you, Ms. Sally. Thank you, Ms. Sally.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Tawana Crawford, and I am with Organized Florida, also an organization called Florida Rising. I am one that's also impacted by the rent situation. I am hoping that our city council will take heed and pass on the message, let our voters be with the rent stabilization. Excuse me, I'm nervous.
It's okay. Take your time. It's okay.
I'm praying that the city council just take in consideration that what we're trying to get across, our message across. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Wanda.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for the opportunity to present in public comments, or participate, I should say. We all know the issue at hand. We also know its urgency. We recently saw in St. Petersburg where, the attorney let them know the state laws preempting rent control makes it incredibly difficult to implement and defend, and it could cost the city millions. I want to compel each of you as elected officials to hear us, but also respond as leaders today, because I believe we've already heard some of what legal has to say about the matter, and it would sound somewhat the same. In St. Pete, they said it could cost millions of dollars. Can I tell you it's going to cost millions if we do nothing anyway? Doing nothing will cost us millions of dollars, but blood is on our hands. Doing nothing will cost us regardless. You know, city attorneys, they do a good job with pointing out costs and the burden of proof and all of that. We live, we see it. We've heard all Florida weigh in on this crisis. We've all heard the same cry. This is a state of emergency. Count these costs. Doing nothing, gentlemen, will cause multiple thousands of working people to live in their cars. They'll be living in parks. They'll be living in hotels. They'll be living illegally in tents. They'll be living in places, and they're working. That's unacceptable to most of us. Doing nothing is going to increase health hazards in our city. It'll increase crime levels. It'll increase domestic violence. It will decrease, however, the number of voters. We don't care who's in office when we live in a park. We really don't care who's in office when we're in our cars. Voting didn't help us get out of this situation. So we can't afford that expense as a city. So I'm going to leave you with a question. Do you want to spend millions of dollars defending us, or do you want to spend millions of dollars on homelessness and the increase of crime and the increase of the issues with that affect mental illness? Because we've been denied our human right, which is housing. We want rent stabilization, and we want it now. Thank you. So it's me again, but with a different group. So again, it's Keela McCasker with the Center for Economic Development, and I have a group where we teach children in the city at Lena Bean Academy. I thank them for participating today. But this group, they've learned much about housing, education. They learn about real estate. We teach them some of the fundamentals of development, and they're very familiar with what's taking place. And we're saying that regardless of what we hear from legal and regardless of what they say the limitations are, we're asking you to respond, knowing that it's our request that you put the stakeholders, the voters, those of us, the constituents that's impacted by this crisis, give us the chance to fight. You may not have any jurisdiction or you can't do anything about what's taking place, but I do believe that you can help us, join in with us, and help us get this thing declared an emergency. We want to freeze rents for the next 12 to 24 months, which gives us an opportunity to stabilize where it is now and prevent unrealistic, exorbitant amount of increases. And then we have the opportunity to potentially add more housing. So they're very familiar. Join us and lead us and help us get this declared an emergency. But even the children, they understand the impact and they have a message. They have a message.
This is an emergency. We want rent stabilization now.
Yes, so don't let the fact that they weren't able to get any information back, dealing with laws from 1970, that's unacceptable. This is an emergency, and we want rent stabilization now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCasker, for bringing the kids a good history lesson for them today. All right, let's keep those speakers coming. Uh-oh, we're in trouble now.
Good afternoon, City Council.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, City Councilman. I think all of you know Chloe Coney, the woman that wear many hats. And I have over 30 years experience. I've seen every situation that our community needs, safe and affordable housing. But today is the worst. We are in a housing crisis. You know we're receiving calls, residents being evicted every day. Local residents can't buy houses because corporations are buying the homes. Homelessness is real. It is real. Last week, CDC of Tampa, Florida Rising, and Center for Economic Development brought my mentor, Steve Glaudet, down from Washington, D.C. He is the CEO of Coalition of Housing and Economic Development. He has a I want you to hear this, $450 million housing trust fund. And they started out with a campaign, Housing for All. His coalition has 80 nonprofits, 60 mission-driven private sector members working together with their city government. And we need a coalition like this in Tampa. Campaign Housing for All. We will start with rent stabilization, what you're hearing now, we need now. But we need to look at all housing solutions. Like he told us last week about the tax credits with apartments. After 40 years, they come available to sell. Well, in DC, they offer those apartments to the tenants so they can buy it to keep the rent affordable. We must, here in Tampa, keep our affordable housing and preserve them. We can't build ourselves out of this crisis that we're in. So I'm saying today, my question to all of you city councilmen, what do you want City of Tampa to look like? Only the poor that have vouchers and the rich can only live here in the city of Tampa? The working people with moderate income will not be able to live in the city of Tampa. Your answer to this housing crisis would tell us we need political will to housing for all. I want to say to you, thank you for listening to us today. And again, we want to work with you to get housing for all, and we need to start with rent stabilization. So again, thank y'all. From this senior, seasoned practitioner of doing housing and economic development. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cloyd. Wow, we have a special guest in the house, man.
Should I start?
You can start.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tamara Schamberger, president of the Black Child Development Institute, Greater Tampa Bay affiliate. We're an organization that focuses on the well-being of Black students, families, and communities. Today, I'm here to discuss with you about two pressing issues that together have us on a collision course of disaster. That's housing and education. Now, as many of you may know, Hillsborough County continues to lead the state with the most perpetually lowest performing schools, many of which are right here in the city of Tampa. Now, we can all agree that there are many different reasons for these schools being low performing, but there's one reason that we cannot ignore, and that's housing and the mobility of families. You see, families are moving from house to house, apartment to apartment, couch to couch, many times throughout the school year, creating a great disruption in our children's education process. And so we have to address it. This is going to be the failure of our city. And so I do understand, actually, let me give you an example. James Elementary in East Tampa is our lowest performing school in Hillsborough County. It is the only F school in Hillsborough County. Right now today, James Elementary has a 36% mobility rate, which means 36% of the school population has changed since the beginning of this school year. That means that is the result of an unstable housing market and families moving too often. And so while I understand that a solutions-based conversation really yields the most fruit, let me kind of give you something that I think you should think about when it comes to this housing crisis. I want you to pull out your maps. I want you to draw a 3 to 5 mile radius around every low-performing school in the city. Then draw another circle around all of the high pockets of poverty, low-income, marginalized communities. Where those circles may overlap, draw a big red circle. And you should call these areas your stabilization zones. These are areas where we need to stabilize our communities. You should enact in these zones some rent control, rent regulation, rent stabilization, whatever you like to call it. But then also infill it with resources and true infrastructure so that you can stabilize these communities. And here's gonna be the results. One, we're gonna curb gentrification, which is a great thing here in the city of Tampa for our community. But we're gonna create stable families, which means stable communities. Stable communities then mean stable education. Then and only then will we have the foundation we need to build upon a strong and better city of Tampa. Every child, no matter their race, ethnicity, affluence, deserve access to equitable and strong education here in the city of Tampa. And this is a call for urgency on their behalf. No matter what you do, just do something. Our future really depends on it. Thank you.
Thank you, former school board member Schamberger. Miranda, we got all the heavy hitters today, man.
Good afternoon, City Council.
Good afternoon, sir.
Ernest Coney with the CDC of Tampa. Here to just sound the alarm again. If you think about where we're at, the term Tampanian is now an endangered species. We're in a crisis. The days of having young folks come back to Tampa because they can afford rent or afford a home and build their families here are long gone, unless we do something. We have to do something. The days of having our young professionals go to USF, University of South Florida, and start their lives here are over because Tampanians are an endangered species. We have to do something. We know we have to do something. I do not envy you sitting there on the dais. We have to do something. We know that doing nothing has led us to a point where we've had 50% increases in rent as well as home ownership costs. So we know the cost of doing nothing has cost us something. But we also want to be solutions oriented. We know that rent stabilization is just one component. We brought Steve Glade down to Tampa to talk about what they've done in Washington, D.C. as solution oriented possibilities where renters who are renting complexes now have the ability to buy that property as an option instead of selling it to a private investor to raise those rents and continue to increase those rents. And this is not a poverty issue. This is a working issue. This is anybody who lives in the city of Tampa who has a job needs to think about how we're going to stabilize the rents in Tampa. So it's not a poor issue. This is a free market issue where if you do not want to help to build the fabric of Tampa, we don't want you to do business here in Tampa. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Kelsey, and I live in Seminole Heights now for the past couple of years. And last year I was a teacher for Hillsborough County. I can't tell you how many kids had to shuffle between homes while also educating themselves through COVID. As a full-time teacher, I could not afford the rent here, so I made the choice to leave education, and I'm now working 3 jobs. None of them are minimum wage, and I can barely afford rent while living with someone else. And I don't understand how some of the council members can sit up there and say that it's an issue where you first need to speak to your family, because first of all, not everybody has a family that they can count on. It's diluted to suggest so. I think it's strange to say that rent control is not an option we need to look at because there's so many other options. You can chew gum and walk at the same time, right? It's a multifaceted issue. You can take multiple approaches to it. Nobody's tying your hands. As for the cost of it being millions of dollars in litigation, it will also be millions of dollars, as has been said by other people who have spoke, in consequences if you continue to let the unhoused population rise. I work with the unhoused people here every week in Boral Park. There is more and more every week. More and more of them are working 40 and more hours a week, and they literally cannot afford to feed themselves. It's not okay. And if you're not doing absolutely everything you can, then I don't know why you're doing your job at all. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Verlene. I'm here to show my support for the rent stabilization and control. First off, I would like to say 1977 is the last time, or anybody want to mention affordable housing. And that word affordable, if you're looking up in the dictionary, it means inexpensive. So if inexpensive and affordable don't apply to me, and apparently everybody that came before me, we need to either find another definition for affordable, or we need to find out who affordable is for. Because right now, the word affordable don't apply to me. I was a child in 1977. So here I am in 22. Am I begging for housing, or is it a basic need? So somebody up in the city council, the government, someone need to figure it out to help me out understand who affordable housing is for. Is it for the everyday person? The young lady that just spoke, she said she got 3 jobs. 3 jobs. And she's a teacher. We already know teachers don't make no money. We got to help our everyday people. Sleeping in the car is not housing. Sleeping on the street is not housing. Sleeping on somebody's sofa is not housing. We need housing for self. Everybody needs housing. It's a basic need. A basic need for housing. So 1977 is over and done with. 2022 is now. And we need to get it taken care of now, people. Let's get this rent stabilization together, and this ordinance need to be dealt with as soon as possible. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council.
Yeah.
My name is Bishop Michelle B. Patty. I am a homeowner, but I come to speak because this crisis affects us all. Not doing anything is the coward's way out. Councilman, listen, the landlords are raising the rents now. So it doesn't matter whether you don't do anything or you wait to do it. The rents are being raised now. We have sent troops. Troops are going over to a foreign land to fight for democracy for other people. These same troops will come back here and not have a place to live. That is unacceptable. We need to understand that the crisis that we're facing now is not going to go away because this council simply does nothing. We also need to understand that we have a legal department that is being subsidized by the citizens of Tampa, and that legal department need to go to work and find some ways to come up with ordinance and different things that will stop what is happening here. We are a first-class city, and we need to begin to act that way. This is not about race. It's not about religion. This is about basic human rights. On last week, I was here to speak on the Tenants' Bill of Rights. Now it's time to put some teeth in what has been already transpired. So I don't want to hear any more about what they may do, because what they may do, they are doing it. They are raising the rent, and the rent is out the roof. people cannot afford a place to stay. You're talking about veterans who are being put out on the streets, seniors that are being put out on the street, children that is being put out on the street. So where is your compassion? That's what we're asking for, that you stand up, and we're going to let the chips fall where they may, because I'm pretty glad, thankful that I know my city well enough, the one that I was born in, that we will stand up and fight anything that is going to hinder folks from having a decent place to live. So no more excuses. Let's go to work, council. I have faith in knowing that you can do it. And those of you that are in legal, you need to put those legal minds to work, and let's come up with some ordinance. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Burbeth Foster, and I am an attorney with the Community Justice Project located in Miami. We are movement lawyers that support grassroots and community organizers in their fight for racial and social justice. I am here today to support rent stabilization in the Tampa area. As an attorney supporting Black and brown communities on the front lines of this housing crisis, my organization is asking that you take the opportunity to hear some points in reference to the city attorney's memo to the council, as well as to address a couple issues raised by Council Member Carlson concerning unintended consequences for this possible ordinance. First, I will address the concern of the city attorney as to the exemption for luxury buildings under the governing statute, and specifically what rent amounts would apply as a luxury. The plain language of the statute includes the defined date of January 1st, 1977, and applies the necessary calculation of a luxury rental amount to leases or rent list existing on that date. The statute does not require any further calculations or the inclusion of newly constructed units into that definition. Therefore, only those units that were in operation on the date in 1977 would be applicable under the governing statute. The burden should be on the landlord, should lie with the landlord to act as an impediment, and that should not be an impediment actually to moving forward with rent stabilization. So the landlord should be the party to have to come forward to claim that exemption. That shouldn't stop the council from moving forward with rent stabilization. Secondly, the current bills in the Florida legislature that were referenced, HB 569 and Senate Bill 620, should not be a barrier either. The current draft of the bill states a county or municipality is not liable for business damages caused by an ordinance or charter provision that is expressly authorized by state law. As the city attorney's memo points out, rent stabilization efforts are expressly authorized under Florida Statute 166.043. So that does not prevent the council from moving forward. Third, I would like to address Councilmember Carlson. Councilmember, St. Paul and LA have instituted rollback periods within the definition of their effective date for base rent level. What that means is the council can actually put into the language of the ordinance that base rent will be defined as the amount of rent based on the day that the commission institutes the housing crisis emergency. So they can't just unilaterally raise rents between now and November knowing that it's coming later, because you can actually write into the ordinance backdating rent to a specific period to where you deem to be acceptable for the upcoming ordinance. So that can address some of those concerns. In addition, if you couple that with extended rent notice periods, these things can act as barriers against bad actors such as landlords engaging in unscrupulous practices. Although we agree, and everyone agrees, that affordable housing is the goal, that is a long-term solution that does not address the problems of the people who are here today. Affordable housing has to be packaged with a well-planned rent stabilization ordinance and an extended notice periods, and all of these comprehensive and holistic approaches will be what is needed to fight this crisis. So we stand in solidarity with the community, asking the commission to move forward boldly and courageously in your rent stabilization efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we also want to say we support housing justice on every block.
Ms. Debbie or Lisa, get this young lady's information, name, phone number, email address, please. Next speaker. State your name, you can start speaking.
Hello, my name is Crystal Robles, and I'm born and raised here in Tampa Bay. And we are here because we believe every community deserves justice on every block. Progress is necessary, but at what cost? In the past 3 years, the affordability in Tampa has reached a breaking point, and that's why we are here today. Statistics show that Tampa is now 24% higher than prior to COVID, and the rates are increasing. We rated the highest increase in the nation in 2021, and we're still growing. As a native, I've seen and felt the push of locals out towards Brandon, Riverview, and the surrounding areas due to the housing wants during the mass mandate migration. Now, for many reasons, people have moved to Tampa Bay, and we don't mind sharing our beautiful, breathtaking views and warm weather. The unfortunate side of that is our city is losing its charm, like the demolition of the historic church on Hillsborough with the steeple that you can see as you come down 275, letting you know that you are in the heart of Tampa. Or even the remodel of the convention center that was designed after the Riverboat Queen. It's the character and the charm of the city and the history that's being erased. Tampa, I feel right now, is in a very messy game of Monopoly, and we are being ripped apart, torn down, and sold to the highest bidder. Now that you know the problem, these natives of Tampa and the people who have called Tampa home for many years demand a stop to this egregious rise in rent. People are being forced out to make way for those changes with very few options for themselves. As well, most people living in Tampa are workers of the hospitality industry. Tampanians have served Tampa for generations, and now it's time for the mayor and those in charge to serve the people of the longtime communities. That's why you were hired, to protect our communities, as when you were voted into office. There is record and evidence of online rental companies purposely driving up the home costs here in Tampa, which they were found guilty of in court. Actions like this, amongst other reasons, including the 24% rental increase, is why we are experiencing a rental crisis. Forced evictions, overpriced rental options, and low living wages were the wick. Rising homelessness was the fuse, and boom, now we're in the middle of this horrible rental crisis situation. We are here because every community deserves justice for every block, and we belong here too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, City Councilmen and members and community. My name is Denise Pate, and I'm a realtor with eXp Realty. I'm here to speak on behalf of the middle class and who are quickly becoming the working poor. They are being put in positions that force them to pay 60 to 70% of their income, which leaves little money for necessities. I'm not sure what the solution is, but collectively we must come up with something that will alleviate homelessness or the threat of homelessness. I get calls from people daily looking for rental properties between $1,000 and $1,200 a month, which actually no longer really exists. Anywhere in the city, there's very few rentals in that price range. We force people out of public housing with nowhere to go. These people are now living in hotels and cars and piled up in with family members. Other people have diligently worked on their credit and saved money, taken the required courses, but are outbid by corporate buyers who are paying cash for homes. Is there any way to control the amount of homes any one entity can purchase? Housing is a human right, and we have to prioritize that basic right, and the dignity of these families is a priority. We are in a crisis now and need housing stabilization now. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Good afternoon. My name is Pastor Tom Jones, and I'm the president of Community United, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the crisis that we have here in Tampa concerning our rent. I'm here because of the fact that we as leaders in the community, we know that our members of this community need a safe place to live. And as a leader, we are doing our very best to provide that. But I came today to share a story with you, and it's a true story that one of my members decided to sell their home and to move to Tampa in an apartment. They have a great income because they retired from Delta Airlines, so they have a pension, and we decided to help them to find an apartment. Not knowing how difficult that was going to be. Now, when you go to find an apartment in a safe environment, you have to have 3 times the amount of monthly income that your rent is. Most individuals know that the cost of living went up very high, but the wages did not go up with that. So I'm asking the city council today to please do your very best to come up with a solution where we can not only provide a safe environment and a safe place for individuals to live, but also that we can come up with some resolution to individuals not having to have 3 times the salary that their rent is, because most individuals do not make 3 times what the rent is because it has went so high. It is sky high, and we need to address that. And I thank you, and I'm happy to be here today. When they asked, how are you going to help? I said, I'm going to city council, and that's the reason that I'm here today, and I'm trusting that you all will help us. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Carla Correa. I'm a tenant union organizer here in the Tampa Bay area, and I see the suffering going on here firsthand because of this housing crisis. Tampa City Council, it's time to lead the housing struggle in Florida and be the first city to pass a housing state of emergency and let the people of Tampa vote on rent control. As most of you know, I hope, rents are being raised 30% on average here in Tampa, and it's not sustainable for working people. It's time for the City Council to stand up for the working people of Tampa and protect them from the ruthless rent gouging we're seeing not only in our community, but in all working class communities throughout Florida. These astronomical rent increases are displacing us from our communities and ruining our lives. And you all, the Tampa City Council, you have the authority to intervene in this crisis and make sure that the people of Tampa who make the city run can actually stay in their homes. Housing is a human right, and no one should receive a rent increase that's going to make them decide if they're going to pay their rent or buy food this week. The wages aren't keeping up with these rent increases, so it's time to rein in the greed of landlords. If the City Council can't even pass a basic declaration of emergency in response to people losing their homes, it truly shows their character. Human lives are more important than the profit of landlords. Rent control is a Band-Aid that will help the bleeding of the working class who are struggling. And Bill Carlson, you're telling a bold-faced lie by saying that rent control is going to hurt people. If people are being forced out into the street, if that's not an emergency to you, what is, Bill? Tampa residents need a stop to the rent increases, a stop to the evictions.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your comments. And again, we don't attack council members, but again, thank you for your comments.
Contact the Tampa Tenants Union.
Thank you. And just for the record, if you spoke this morning on rent stabilization this morning, you're not allowed to speak again. We have to give everybody a chance to speak. Next speaker. Did you speak this morning, sir, on rich stabilization, sir? I remember you speaking this morning.
I did.
All right, we heard your comments already, so we want to give some other people a chance to speak, but thank you for coming back down, sir.
Oh, absolutely.
If you've spoken this morning, we have rules in place, so if you spoke this morning, we thank you for coming, but you cannot get a second shot at the apple. Thank you, though. More afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Getulio Gonzalez-Militieri with Chispa, Florida. First off, I'd like to thank you for deliberating the issue in good faith, but we need action, and acknowledgement isn't action enough. As you know, the city is in a housing crisis, and it's up to you to use your executive authority, but I'm also going to use this platform to call out the mayor because she's the one with the real executive authority to declare a housing state of emergency. And as far as I know, it's time for the city of Tampa to start exercising our municipal sovereignty. Gentlemen, now's the time to be bold. Now's the time to be courageous. And I'm speaking from the perspective of a son. You see, picture a retired woman, single woman, who cannot afford rent because her pension is $900 in the city of Tampa. And then I'm also speaking on behalf of myself because my rent went up from $600 to $800 to $1,000 within the span of a year. See, this is an emergency without a doubt, but we require action. All these people wearing red shirts, they'll stand behind you. They're looking for champions. And as far as I can tell, you were elected to do that. You are elected to do that, to represent these people. So if you need these people to back you, to pressure the mayor to institute or declare a housing state of emergency, let's do it. We're here for it. You see us, and the numbers are just going to keep growing. So, gentlemen, please, I'm asking you to consider passing this seriously today. And we're not talking about a ballot measure or a ballot initiative. We need action now. We need action now, gentlemen. Like, I've seen it. I'm feeling it. The people in my family are feeling it. And there are hundreds, maybe thousands of people throughout the city dealing with it right now. Thank you. I didn't prepare anything. That's all I got for now. And my call to action to everybody, sorry, I'm not seeing my time yet. My call to action to everybody in the building, outside the building, in the lobby, call the mayor, ask her to declare a housing state of emergency, and keep calling her over and over and over and over because we need the pressure. We need to apply pressure now. And then we need to take this to the state legislature because it doesn't end here. Tampa, we need to be the leaders. We're the leaders. We're Tampa Bay. We got to do it now. Thank you.
You state your name, you can begin speaking.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Angie Boone. How are you all doing today?
All right, fine.
Okay, thank you all for spending the entire day as city council members listening to the public and for your assistance with this emergency crisis. I'm currently raising generation number 5 of Tampa, here in Tampa. I am an insurance professional. Previously, my last job was working for a Fortune 100 company here in Tampa, and it was considered a very highly valued position, a significantly well-paid position in Tampa. My personal scenario was that my rent tripled from 2019 to 2021. It is nearly impossible to make in a Fortune 100 position with 20 years of experience and 8 Florida licenses to make enough money to meet the requirement of triple the rent and to be able to afford to raise my children as a single person in Tampa. I'm a single mother having my 4th child, and I am, like I said, the 5th generation here in Tampa. My great-grandfather, grandfather, and great-uncle helped build Bank of America, the old sombrero. My great-uncle was fireman in Ybor, and we would, I understand family is important, and I do come from a long line of people from here. I am a single person in my family. I do not have other family members to reach out to. I am the only provider for my family. So it's not as if I could reach out to a sibling or a parent or an aunt or an uncle. And just a resident here of Tampa trying to contribute and make the community better. I want to say that the more seasoned representatives who have spoken here, I am so excited about some of the things that they said. I really hope you could go back and, think about what they're saying and consider the proposals for DC. I hadn't been aware of any of that. My profession is in insurance. I do know that we have a severe situation that's causing additional cost of living, where 1 in 4 registered drivers in Florida do not have insurance. That is registered drivers. That means 75% of registered drivers in Florida are supporting the insurance claims.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Not counting all of the people visiting and moving into Florida who maintain their insurance out of state. It's causing a severe burden. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Good afternoon, City Council board members, spectators, speakers, and all participants.
Can you state your name for us, please?
Tiffany Judge.
Thank you.
I am a Tampa resident, and I believe that every community deserves justice on every block. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you and share my story of hoping to become a first-time homeowner. I've gone from homelessness to being in my apartment now for 13 years. I remember walking down the street when I was pregnant with my son and saying to myself, I want to live there one day when my apartments were being built. I am now a mother of 4, and my 7-year-old reminds me constantly that she wants a house. She is not alone in her desire. We've outgrown our apartment. I've done everything that you say, the city says that I'm required to do in order to become a first-time homeowner. We deserve a house with a front yard, a backyard, a place to build a garden, somewhere safe for my daughter to play outside. We have gone through and grown a lot as a family. We are ready for the American dream, but it is out of reach for us and so many others with the rising cost of rent and the lack of affordable homes. While it was refreshing to hear the City Council, you board members, state that you realize and understand that there is a housing crisis, it was discouraging to see that you kind of gave up before the fight even started, stating that there's nothing that you can do. I challenge this board today to not leave here without a real and true solution to this crisis. An earnest action plan to make it possible for people like me to realize the American dream, become homeowners, make it possible for people who are where I started to put a roof over their head and do something to stabilize rent and attack the housing market crisis and ensure that there is justice on every block. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Hello, my name is Gayle Rogers. I'm with the Fight for 15 and I am an impact person. And by that, I mean, at my age now, being 62, and need a place to stay, that I can afford to pay the rent. My incomes mean I need to have 3 times more than the rent in order to have somewhere to stay. I don't think that's right. Social Security, disability, even go to work part-time at McDonald's do not make me eligible to pay my rent. I myself, as a senior, is dealing with the same problems like everyone else. I goes to places, try to apply, but by me don't have enough income, I don't be eligible for rent, and that is not right. It's other people that's going through the same thing that I am going through with. It's suffering right today. I was a part of Amendment 2 to be passed, and with that being said, going up year after year, we need $15 right now to afford the cost of living. And another thing, this is something I would like to say to the council. I believe that the community deserves justice on every block, which includes housing. I'm calling to ask my council to acknowledge the housing state of emergency and allow voters to pass a rent stabilization measure to ensure there's justice on every block. I hope the councilmen will acknowledge the crisis and bring this matter to the voters. Will you pass along my message, please? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Linda Wiggins Chavis, and I am a Hillsborough County organizer with Faith in Florida. I am here today not only speaking as an organizer, but also speaking as a Tampa resident, as a mother, and as a former teacher. As an organizer, I have been out canvassing. I have spoken to various people about their lived experiences with this housing crisis. People are being evicted. People are living in motels. One woman I spoke to is living out of her car, and she's been dealing with this for 9 months, where she's going from living in her car to living on people's couches. The one thing that she said to me was that she just wants a place of her own. We already heard from the children that came forward. I was so grateful to hear from them. But speaking as a teacher, I know what it's like for children who are displaced by this housing crisis, where it affects their education and it affects their well-being. I mean, you have no idea what it's like. I was a science teacher. Do you know how difficult it is trying to teach children science when they're sitting in class hungry, when they're sitting in class not knowing where they're going to sleep later that night? It's difficult enough with everything that they have to deal with. But not to know where they are going to live is horrific for a young child to have to deal with. So I am asking the same thing that everyone else is asking. Please declare this as a state of emergency. Please implement rent stabilization programs. We have numerous issues that have been brought forward, but we haven't had numerous solutions that are being discussed. This is something that has to be solved immediately. It's becoming catastrophic, the effects that it's having on people. And we know this is something that is disproportionately marginalizing already marginalized Black and brown communities. This is something that we need to take control of and solve immediately. I am not a lifetime resident of Tampa, but for those who are, I have the deepest compassion for.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is James Felton. I am a Tampa resident. I believe in every community, just on every block, have seen how rent goes up every year, as so as mine. My rent was going up every year. I'm on SSD, but as one of the workers of the office came up to me and asked for the keys on January the 4th, and asked me to turn in the keys so that way I had 1 hour to get everything out of there, out of one bedroom apartment, and it was large. So I couldn't be able to do so. So what I have done is take what I had, put in the patio, and then they had to close it up with after that hour and then put a new padlock on it so that way I couldn't get back on. But to see how I was homeless that night walking down Bush. I had 1 o'clock in the morning going down Bush Boulevard, going to IHOP, didn't have nowhere to go until I received a call. One of my friends said, well, come where I'm at to a hotel. I had one small bag. And after that small bag of that night, I didn't have no way to get there. So a lady of the work of the IHOP had asked me, do you have any money? I'll put you on an Uber. Just give me $8. That's all I had, $8 to give her to go where I need to go that night. But prior to that, I lost everything in my home, my living room, my kitchen, my dryer, everything that was I had worked for. I didn't have much money. My rent was going up from $7-something to $8.95. I didn't have anything to have to go with me. I had to get a 4x5 storage, but I'm paying right now $50, and that was too much for me to do so by losing everything. And right now, nothing that I have, that same storage that I have with that small bag and few things that I have, some of my friends went by and got for me. My lights went up to over $500, and how is I'm going to pay that? Then they want to bill me over $5,000 just to remodel the apartment. I couldn't afford anything, so I'm just asking, and God forbid that let no one after this that hear this that go through what I've been through are losing everything. Clothes on my back right now. One of my family members had to let me wear this here because I am right now the member of the Florida Rising. And I thank God for the people that reach out and touched me and asked me, do I need anything? But right now, please, God, y'all just do something that no one will leave something like that behind of some value that I had left when I was growing up. Used to be married, but it's just that I lost everything. So please help us of this here rent. Please, I'm asking you and begging you that God forbid that nothing like this have ever happened again.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Patricia Griffin. I'm on a fixed income. Next year, I'll be homeless, and it's just me. And I don't really have nowhere to go because my apartment, they are steady going up on the rent, $20 or $25. I'm really on a fixed income, and I'm not getting 100%. So my income is a little lower, and it's not going to be enough to pay my rent after next year because electric bill, phone bill. I have to have a phone bill because I have a little sickness problem. And then I'm by myself. And I'm going to be afraid, really afraid next year because I will not have nowhere to stay. I will be out on the streets. I need help bad. I'm all by myself. And if they could just, they keep saying building affordable homes. What's affordable home? That's not concluded people on a fixed income. And I really can't pay it. What they mean affordable income? Rent $900, a grand, $1,200. I don't even get a grand every month. I don't even get a grand. I'm 80% disability. And I will not have nowhere to go when my lease is up next year. I need help bad. Please help me. I'm a scary person, and I don't know nobody, nowhere to go. I don't have nowhere to stay. So please help me, somebody. Please help me. They need to stop going up on this rent, especially for us Floridians who done been here for years, all their life. I can see people moving down here and they go up on their rent. But the Floridians who've been here all their life, it's so sad we're going to be out the door homeless. And I can't deal with it, and I don't want to lose my mind next year because I don't have nowhere to go, can't afford rent no more. So please, somebody, help me. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
How many more speakers, Jim?
Give me 1 second, please.
One speaker left?
Okay.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Mary Elizabeth Estrada. I live in the Seminole Heights area right now. I am representing Florida Rising and Florida Student Power Network, and I'm here today to call on you all to take action and address our city's housing crisis. What I just heard was insane. Were you all really listening to those testimonies? Those are real people. This is a real crisis. Today I'm asking you to vote to declare a state of emergency and allow the voters of Tampa to pass a rent stabilization measure. This needs to be treated like a crisis. Florida Rising is going to be present at these meetings until justice takes place on every block. The Tampa Bay region is expected to experience rising sea levels and flood surges. This is going to cause affluent communities to move to higher grounds and displace low-income Black and brown communities. Extreme weather events are only going to become more prevalent, and we must ensure that existing homes and rentals and future homes and rentals are safe, are affordable, healthy, and climate resilient for our communities. Private investors and developers are not going to save us. Their only goal is to maximize profit. They do not care about the well-being of people. They do not care about homeless people or evictions. The people in Tampa need solutions now, and we need to see this council do everything in their power to pass a rent stabilization ordinance. No one should have to pay over 30% of their income on rent. I'm begging you to please do everything in your power to pass a rent stabilization ordinance. Thank you.
There's 7 more speakers, Chairman.
7 more?
Yes, 7.
Hello. Looking at me, I'm sure you are aware.
Can you state your name for us, please?
My name's Ollie. I'm sure you're aware that I'm another working class citizen here in the city. wondering where I will be when my lease is up in April, as I work here in downtown and my rent is increasing from $1,400 to nearly $1,700, with even one-bedrooms and studios residing around that price. But since it's already been made apparent that my individual life holds little merit in the eyes of the profiteer, I want to broaden this conversation for a moment and press the fact that my current situation is driven by a cycle from birth to adulthood that keeps impoverished people struggling through every facet of their community. Yes, we're in a state of emergency, rent prices are out of control, and the reform is not only possible, but actively being withheld from the people. But if this sole issue is not swaying enough to you all, then you must understand that rent reform, when the prices are finally in remission, is all-encompassing. To address rent control is to eradicate houselessness and to reduce crime rates. It is to provide rehabilitation countering the hard drug epidemic, to address our judicial system and the way it perpetuates the cycle of houselessness. To denounce gentrification is to rid the segregation of and provide funding to our school systems. It is to inherently address living wages and our working conditions, and to further put money back into our base level economy. To start here, demanding change for those who are being pushed out of their homes or losing their livelihood to the roof over their head, to even discuss one's price to live, we are discussing every single way and that human life is viewed as a commodity when it is a birthright, when the basic act of no longer barely surviving, but living, is essential and non-negotiable. Council, I want you all, when you return home today, to sit on the idea of what your individual lives are worth in cash. Your friends, your spouses, what is their worth of living in money? If you cannot come up with an answer, then I want you to sit and remember my face. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shelby just informed me there are 6 speakers left, gentlemen, and we will close the public comments after that speaker. Thank you, Mr. Shelby.
This is Norhan speaking. We keep hearing that Tampa Bay is one of the fastest growing economies in Florida, and it's said to be one of the best economies in the United States right now. It's on the come up. It's the place to be right now. Tampa ended 2021 with one of the hottest housing markets in the entire country. People celebrated as we hosted and won the Super Bowl. We got recognition from the nation for our very own Netflix show, Selling Tampa, where $1 million homes were being sold. What is often hidden underneath these headlines of a growing city are the voices of the people who have been abandoned and left behind. Black and brown communities who lived in areas like Seminole Heights and downtown Tampa have been bought out of their homes and had their neighborhoods gentrified. West Hyde Park was once a bustling black community and is now filled with condos, apartments, and businesses, leaving individuals who once lived there unable to even recognize the place they once called home. It is clear that low-income and black and brown families are not included in politicians and corporations' vision of a new, growing Tampa. If life is not going to get better for the people in this city, who is it getting better for? The people of Tampa don't want more luxurious condos for out-of-state billionaires to move into. We want safe, affordable housing and affordable health care. That's what a growing Tampa looks like to us. A city which is growing does not neglect the very people who have built it. A growing city doesn't only include tall buildings and big malls, but it should also include clean water and affordable housing for the people who have nurtured it.
Good afternoon, City Council members. My name is Hiba Rahim with CARE Florida in support of Florida Rising here today and the cause that they are championing. I'm going to cut out a lot of my speech because the truth is that you already know there's a state of emergency. It's been stated very eloquently by some of our guests today and also by some of you council members. But I want to focus on this one point. Elected representatives, you are the city leaders, and it is your responsibility to ease the burdens of the people. There is a housing emergency, and the people are asking for crisis intervention. And even in this crisis, different blocks are disparately impacted. I moved here from Panama City after Hurricane Michael, and when we experienced Hurricane Michael, everybody suffered. Just like here, everyone is suffering from the housing crisis, but people suffer differently. Different blocks suffer differently. And so the impetus is on you to make a difference and to find those solutions. I asked a few community members to come out here today, and there was interest and some of them wanted to come, but the reason they couldn't be here today is because they could not afford to miss work, because if they missed work, they couldn't meet their rent. Some people are already facing evictions. And these are people within the community at large, including within the Muslim community. There's a lady who called me at 9:30 p.m. last night and complained to me after seeing my message asking for people to come out. And she said, please tell them that I'm having to leave my house, and I drove all around Tampa. I already took off on Tuesday, driving all around Tampa, trying to find a place that supports my $10 an hour store manager position, and I could not find a home to rent. The homes she found were infested with cockroaches, lizards, and that was within her pay grade because she can't keep up with the housing market. I'll end by reminding you, City Council members, that the gross inflation of the housing market is not on your shoulders, but controlling the manipulation of the rental market is. Finding a solution to this housing crisis is your responsibility. And it's a big responsibility, but you signed up for it when you ran for your seats to represent the interests of the people. And we need you to deliver. We need you to let the people's voices be heard on the ballot, allow voters to pass a rent stabilization measure, and protect the people. And on the subject of preemptions, there is this concern that I've heard this concern that there's nothing that you can do to control what happens before or after, but your job is to find the solutions. Not solutions that look good on paper, but comprehensive solutions. That is your job. And so we're asking you to please invest the time to make sure that there is justice on every block. And finally, find solutions as if it was you that was facing eviction, or as if it was your family that was facing eviction. Because just like your family is your responsibility, as city council members, so are your constituents. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Council members, thank you so much. My name is William Kilgore. I'm a tenant organizer. I'm with the St. Petersburg Tenants Union across the Bay, and also the Tampa Tenants Union here in Tampa. So I have an opportunity to, talk to tenants all over the Bay Area and here in Tampa. And, what I hear from folks, every tenant I talk to just about says they support rent control. I don't think I've met a single tenant who says, no, I don't want rent control. I don't think that's a good idea. And just about every landlord I've met or talked to, or developer, business person, they say, no, that's a horrible idea. No way. The class distinction's clear, and you look at that, there's a lot more tenants than there are landlords. And the idea, even mom and pop landlord, that whole idea, I don't even like to use that term. Individual investors is what I like to call them, because you look at these landlords, most landlords are corporate landlords. And that's the whole thing. It's these corporations gouging people. You look at when, there's an emergency, there's a storm or something like that, and you've got shopkeepers jacking up the rent on, gasoline or water or whatever it is. We call it price gouging, and it's illegal. And same thing's happening with the rents. So if that was happening, and there was an emergency and the shopkeeper's gouging the water, we say, well, we need to incentivize them to lower the price of that water, or, we need to just, figure out how to make this work for them, negotiate with them. No, you say, no, you can't do that. Absolutely not. That's something people need. We need water. We need housing. And so I think that it is, it's something that we need rent control. We need to be taking on the profiteers, the developers, the landlords. It's not an equal playing field, and it's just important, that we are putting poor people first, people from the bottom up. I'm a renter. I'm a lifelong renter. I have a high school education. I'm born and raised here in the Bay Area. My family, both sides, are from here. My mother's last name's Cimino. My great-grandparents were immigrants from Sicily who came over here to Tampa to work in the cigar factories. I love this area, but I hate what I'm seeing, and I hate that this is happening. So I implore you, I urge you, take this action, set the example for the rest of the state, and let the dominoes fall. Let's start reining in the profiteers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is Robin Lockett. I'm the Regional Director of Florida Rising. City Council, if you haven't noticed, the people have come down and they've spoken. We even wore our red shirts to show solidarity. You have an opportunity to not even necessarily do what's right, but really take the time to listen to the constituents that have come out and spoken. There's a time for you to support the community versus corporations. Every rule or law, there's a loophole in it. It's an opportunity for the city council to be creative in handling this situation because it's not going away. So I heard a lot of councilmen saying that they're not afraid, they're not afraid. So if you're not afraid, just sit in it, take the time to understand it. Don't look at it as with being afraid of or being cautious of preemption and all of that other stuff. Really look at this situation as an opportunity to listen to the community and figure out a way to do it. Other places have done it. That's why when Councilman or Chairman Goose suggested this, he provided examples. So it's research. It's finding another city that has our environment or our environment to really make this work. You may not be able to do everything, but you can do something. So again, the community came out. We will be building, making people aware, because people really don't understand what their rights are. That's the problem, or understand where they can go. That's the problem. So we are going to be building around this. We're going to keep pushing it. So I hope the conversation that you have next is what can we do, and let's really push our sleeves up to really have this done. Thank you so much for your time. And again, we believe that every community deserves justice on every block. Thank you.
Final speaker.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Alvin Williams, and I'm the owner of eBuilding Concepts, a consulting technology firm here, construction technology consulting firm here in Tampa, Florida. And I am proud to say that I am building and testing one of Tampa's first 3D home printers. And I have been working on this for 4 years. I have been going around asking for any kind of help I can get for 4 years since Lord has placed this idea of a concept in my brain. I have constructed this, designed it, engineered it, and built it. Right now, it is standing in my front yard right now. I have talked to everybody from the mayor of Tampa, Clearwater, St. Petersburg. Can I have some help bringing this technology to the industry that's so desperately needed? This is a perfect storm now, and to me, it's a simple economics, supply and demand. We don't have enough houses, so therefore the few that we do have, people can charge this astronomical price for it. It only makes sense because we are over 5 million homes behind in this nation right now. And there is no way we can catch up with the amount of homes that we need with this archaic way that we're building houses. We have been building houses this way for 10,000 years, stick by stick by stick, block by block by block. There are better ways of building things. We have automation, manufacturing on everything else on the planet, but yet we're still building houses the way we have done building the pyramids. This is ridiculous. Let's embrace this new way of technology so we can get these houses built so we can put people in homes. It's as simple as that. I do not want to be told by my government that just spent $120,000 to put some tents up, some temporary tents to house the homeless people back when the pandemic first came in. We can do better than this. I do not need that much help or that much money to finish building the machine that I know works. There are 3D printers out there that are building houses now, and yes, it is true. You can have a house built in less than 3 days. The structure of the home can be done within 3 days and out of concrete, not plastic, concrete. Let's do this, people. Tampa, listen.
Thank you, sir, for your comments.
We're
Thank you,
up.
sir.
We're up, Tampa. Let's get this done.
Thank you, sir. All right, that concludes public comment.
Final speaker, Chairman.
Final speaker.
No more
Final
speakers.
speaker?
No more speakers.
That was it. Thank you, sir.
That's it.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
forgive me for interrupting, but I just want to remind you that staff is in the vestibule.
We're not going to get to that today, Mr. Chairman.
Well,
Mr.
did you want-
Shelby,
did you
and
wanna
they're
bring-
gonna they're going to come in for give a continuous date for that. We're not gonna get that today.
When will that be, so I can?
They're going to come tell us their date. They're going to come.
Oh,
in
now?
Yes, sir. They're going to come tell us. All right, yeah, we're bringing you back.
Hi, Rebecca Johns, Legal Department. I just wanted to make you aware of a deadline in the event that you do decide to go forward. If you want this to go to the November ballot, then the adopted city ordinance will need to be to the supervisor of elections by August 15th. And since, again, legal strongly recommends if you go forward with this, that there be some type of backup showing the level of emergency required, that we are recommending some type of study, which I don't believe the housing department is equipped to do. So that may require hiring an outside entity to do that. So I just wanted to make you aware of those timeframes.
I guess my question is, the attorney that came on today, she made some points. Are you aware of those points that she's talking about?
Well, the point that she made about the luxury apartments, as I stated earlier, this is assuming this is how it would be interpreted. We don't know how it would be interpreted because it hasn't been interpreted. So it could, I don't think personally that they would have enacted that and it only applied to the apartments that are in place at the time. But again, I don't know because it hasn't been interpreted.
So basically, the way I hear you and the way I hear her, we just don't know to know. So it's like anything, if I'm looking for a new sandwich shop, I've never been there before, and I see the nice sign, I see a difference, I go take a shot at the sandwich and see how it fares out.
I am only providing my
I get it,
advice.
I get it.
But I wanted to let you know that if we do go forward, that we need to account for those timeframes in getting it to the ballot.
All right. Yes, Mr. Carson.
I don't know if we're going to go around or not, but if I could just
Yeah, right.
make a quick statement. In regard to this rent stabilization proposal, as I stated before, I'm absolutely opposed to it. And the state has preempted us on this. That is a fact. and they did it back in the 70s. There are all kinds of hurdles to doing this. It's not rent control. I've lived in places that had rent control, and usually it's for 10 or 20 or 30 years. That way you have a long ramp for landlords not to be able to retaliate before and after the policy. A 12-month policy is nothing. It is going to cause extreme hurt and pain in our community, and it is politically expedient to vote for something that sounds like a good idea but is a terrible idea. I'm not going to be responsible for putting more people on the streets up to October and then after, whenever this is done. This is the wrong policy. There are lots of other policies, and I hope everybody who spoke today will join us in talking to us about all the things that we in the administration have implemented in the last 3 years and that we want to implement, and they can bring us other solutions. If this passes, I think it will be an enormous mistake, and it will hurt the people that we're purportedly trying to help. And I can't have that on my conscience to hurt more people. There absolutely is a crisis. There's a problem in the community. We need to solve it, but we need to solve it with other solutions. With that in mind, I have another motion, if I could make it. Can I make it now or later?
Let's wait till we go round table and we'll make all motions at the end. That way.
So I would just encourage us, we've had several forums and workshops on affordable housing, and I think most of the people here today have not been to those forums. If it's necessary for us to put together a different forum, we can do that. In the meantime, people can email us, they can call us, give us all your ideas. You all are doing lots of research on what we can do in the community, but let's not please pass something that looks like a good idea, but it's going to cause pain and suffering with thousands more people. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Vieira, we'll go to you, we'll go round table, then we'll make some decisions.
Sure, and a lot of good thoughts, ideas, et cetera. You know, I heard, you know, I don't practice, I am an attorney, I don't practice in this area. You know, we're told that with inflation, the requisite cutoff would be 1,150. And one of the things that I want to see, which is how many households would be positively affected by it, because one of the things, you know, first off, to everybody who came here and spoke, I think all six of us, obviously, and Councilman Dingfelder, if he's watching, I know would state as well, thank you very much for showing your heart today, because I think that's very, very important, and a lot of folks spoke from the heart. But one of the big things that I want to make sure is to tell people that if we're going to pass something and say that this is going to, you know, have a really big positive effect on the crisis that you're speaking on the heart from, and yet it's not, and yet it may not, if interpreted a certain way. Let me inquire, if I may, with Ms. Feely, if I may ask, if you know how many households would, if interpreted under 1,150, more or less around that range, in the city of Tampa, do you know how many rental households would be excluded from this ordinance under that view, if you know that?
I don't know for sure. Based on the numbers that were most recent, there are roughly a little over 68,000 households that are renters. And when they do the breakdown of the rents, 7% of those households are less than $1,000.
How do we know that?
This is on Rent Cafe. That's the data that is available to pull right now. It shows that 68,000, and I can pull that up and share my screen, or however you'd like to do that, but it gives the breakdown of where we are with rents and those units. But that, again, is assuming that the 1150 is the number for today. I mean, there are some unknowns in presenting that data to you.
And if I may, that's part of the challenge, which is one of the things that's known is the fact that there's unknowns. And I know that's the way the city attorneys, I believe, in St. Petersburg have gone, at least from the report that's from where the city of Tampa is. So in other words, if you're telling me that on a good day, let's say, again, that we pass this, let's say it passes voters, let's say that 15% bill doesn't pass Tallahassee, which to me is irrelevant, by the way, until it passes. I really don't care. When we were passing the state certified apprenticeship law, we had the threat of preemption hanging over us, and to me that was a very limited relevancy. Practically it could, but in terms of passing it, if Tallahassee's going to do something, you know, on any particular topic, they could. So I don't think that's really, for me, the big issue. The big issue is whether or not we're potentially overpromising, saying that, look, we're going to do rent control in the city of Tampa, and then pass something that excludes if everything goes right, 90% of rental households. That's, for me, the dispositive issue here that again, we're saying that we're putting forth something that 1 out of 10 is a 10, and maybe it's a 1 out of 2. That's one of the things that bothers me a lot. I may come back if I may, so I'll cut my time and go from there, but thank you.
Mr. Morris, you're in the room, sir.
Yeah, I apologize, but I just wanted to come down and kind of reinforce some of the things that Ms. Johns just told you all. And this is similar to what Mr. Carlson said. The limitations that are placed on us by Florida statutes are very serious. No other jurisdiction has ever done this. In order for us to even consider moving forward with this, we would have to undertake some serious studies. We'd have to have evidence to move forward with this. I'm just telling you, this will get litigated, and we'll end up spending all the money that you would like to spend helping these people on lawyers. And so that's my concern. I just needed to voice that here today.
So does that mean survey? What does that mean? When you say evidence, that means...
We have to. We probably need to hire an economist and come forward with it. One of the major issues when you look at this issue is, does rent control really work in the long run? I mean, it does help the immediate problem, but what it does is it discourages or disincentivizes additional multifamily development, which is what you really need to have ultimately. We need to have the supply. We need more affordable housing. We need more housing, affordable and otherwise, in the city to address the rent issue. And ultimately, that's going to be the answer. And so that's really, I think that's the issue that when you look at what the economists say. And so before we move forward with saying there is an emergency and this is the best way to handle or tackle that issue, we probably need to hire an expert to go forward and give us that kind of evidence so that we...
That's a solution.
Yeah.
That is a solution. So
Yes,
I can agree with that, hiring the proper people to do the proper job, because we need the right numbers and so forth and so on. So the folks don't think, well, we just sit up here for almost hours and hours and we're just going to say, oh, we're not going to do nothing. So that's the problem I don't want to leave here doing. Now, if you came down because you're directed to come down and give us more explanation because Ms. Johnson give what we needed, I have no problem with that. But my thing is, today we got to leave here with something for the constituents to understand that we're moving forward to do something, not nothing.
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with everything. In fact, I agree with Mr. Carlson. There's one thing I always tell myself when I'm doing something: what if? Yeah. What does that what if mean? What if it doesn't work? What if you do something and instead of helping, you're hurting the same ones you're trying to help? Then what if? What did you do to help the situation? That's two words that always come to my mind when I'm working on something. And the what if came to my mind some period ago when I was listening to the people who really need help. Is rent stabilization going to help some that I heard there? I don't think so. I hate to say that, because what they need is immediate help from all agencies, not from rent stabilization. Mm-hmm. They need an opportunity for maybe even placement in jobs. They need an opportunity to find help. They need hospitalization. They need medication. They need food assistance. They need it all. And rent stabilization is not the only thing that's keeping them back. So that's my take on it. Not all of them are that way, don't get me wrong. But what if it doesn't work? Are we really helping the situation? What if we hire someone to do that, to give us the what if out of the equation, so we can find out, at least for a presentation, whether it's victorious or not is up to someone else, if we can do this as a city. No city council member among these 7, or anyone that I've ever worked with, would want to put anyone out of their home. That's a given. And I've learned that some time back, and believe me, some years back I was in the same situation some of those people. My family was, not I. And I can understand what they're saying. But in the long term, you have to be very careful that in trying to help, you don't just hurt more than what they're hurting now.
Anyone else? Mr. Scalper, recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was said, you can do it today. The city can do it today. We can do it now. We have the authority to do it now. We don't, because we're talking about you got to write the language, you have to do the research, you have to hire the economists. We don't know because there's no clarity in what's written. We don't understand truly how the law or whatever is written from 1977, how it's to be interpreted. I can vote for support a motion, for an ordinance, whatever, and do what? Because we have a deadline to meet with the supervisor of election by August for the November election, and then should the people pass it, I mean, we're talking a year away almost. But what can we do right now? $1 million in assistance that will be available, not today, but March 1st. What is it, 28 days in this month, unless it's a leap year, I forget. But March 1st is right around the corner, where people up to, how much are they making? Is it $72,000 a year? $72,000 a year, okay? Council members get paid what, $51,000, $52,000, so it's more than what we make, will be eligible for assistance. So someone that's rent went up $50 a month or $500 a month is eligible for assistance for a 12-month period. That's immediate help now. I don't want to throw the city and I don't care, attorneys. You know, everybody can sue. Anybody has a right to sue. But is it worth spending the money and the manpower to fight a lawsuit that we're already talking about? Well, what if, or what if, when we have immediate assistance now? We have something that, I don't know if St. Pete has it. I don't know what other municipalities have, but we have $1 million now. With the budget coming up, maybe we can ask for more. With the CRAs, I know I asked this question, and I'm sorry, I forgot the answer. The CRAs, East Tampa being the biggest, there's money sitting there. And I know money can be used for affordable housing. Can we legally use some of that money for some of this assistance in East Tampa, parts of downtown? We have a West Tampa CRA as well. Can we use some of that money? We can explore that as a CRA board. We can expand on not just $1 million in the general fund that we have here as a city council, but what we can do as a CRA. Maybe that's the legally prudent way to move forward. Our legal department is already overburdened. I don't think we have enough attorneys because we have a lot going on. But at the same time, when we want immediate assistance, immediate help, starting March 1st, people that have spoken today, as long as they're within the city limits, will be eligible for this help.
Absolutely.
I mean, if we have family members, if we have people downstairs, they can get help right away because the money is already available. And I think that's the correct way to move forward. And as we look at this budget coming up, we can see about allocating more to that fund. And again, looking at the CRAs and whatnot, but that's action that we can safely take today that will help people immediately. Thank you.
I'm smiling because, you know, you keep saying the word eligibility. I'd like to know what this eligibility is going to be, because see, what I don't want to hear, I've been calling, I can't get through to anybody, or they say I'm not eligible. See, that's what I don't want to hear, because that's going to happen.
That's going to happen, right.
Mr. Brown, that's going to happen, right? So everybody's going to be able to benefit. Let me finish. We'll be able to benefit. So for me, we can spend the money, CRA dollars, but see, when I hear spending, we need to spend it. We don't need to talk about criteria, all this big criteria. You got to do all this and that to shut people out, because that's what's going to happen. The door going to get shut, and we're going to be back here to square one. So I have a problem. Let's start spending the money, but we better have a criteria so people can say, I can get the cash. And then number two, we still need a housing study in this city. It still needs to be done to see what housing do we have in this city? What housing do we really need in this city? And down the road, we may still need to come back to this thing with, as far as a rent stabilization or how do we proceed. So that still needs to be done. So we can kick this can right now today to say, we'll make sure that March 1st, they start dishing out money, but what's the eligibility? And number two, we still need a housing study to deal with the rent crisis. I think Mr. Situl is first, and then I'll let you rebut, sir.
I go back to my original statement that we are reacting to the symptoms and we're not finding the cure. Is it the government's position to find work for people? No, it's not. But we can use our powers for incentives to bring better paying jobs to this city. People earn more money, they can afford better housing. What's the saying? Give a person a fish. Again,
Or show them how to catch fish.
or show them how to catch fish, yes, sir. Again, I cannot say this enough. Citizens of Tampa, it's not our hands that are bound. Call your state legislatures, call your state senators, call your state representatives. They're binding your hands. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Cross?
I know we're running out of time. Can I just try a couple quick motions to see if they stick?
If you let Mr. Guido get his rebuttal, I'll let you do your motions next, sir.
Mine is real quick. Would a person who has a letter from the landlord that says your rent has gone from $1,200 to $1,700 a month, and they show a W-2 or a pay stub and say, I only make $20,000, $30,000, whatever a year, this is what I can afford, would they be eligible for that, of course, proof of residency and their ID, but would they be eligible for that $500 gap per month, meaning $6,000 over that 12-month period?
They could potentially be, yes. And so what we've done is, like I stated earlier, remove the barrier. So in the past, it would have to be a third-party verification. As long as they come and bring us what their current income is, then they would be eligible for that program for that.
I mean, if they've already provided proof of income and proof that they have a job and whatnot, and they're already approved to live in that apartment, and this is to renew their lease, that's more than enough. Yeah, you verify it, but if they have it on the speakers previously showed today, this was what was shown to me, this is what I was paying, this is what I have to pay now. That should be enough.
That is
and if they live within the city limits.
correct. They have to live within the city limits.
I mean, there's no reason to deny that person. Again, $1 million, may be enough, may not be enough, so we want to revisit that. If we see that it has to be used. I mean, we're making the effort. And if that's what it means to be eligible, like anything, that's very simple.
And understand that the $1 million is helping where the federal funding is not helping. We do have federally funded programs for that 80% or below. So when you have that unrestricted money, we get to help more people that don't meet the income restrictions of the federal funding. So, sorry.
And I just wanted to clarify that payment goes directly to the landlord, not to the tenant.
I just don't want to hear people come back hollering, well, y'all said this, and we made it clear to staff, and all of a sudden people are saying, we're not being eligible. I just don't want to hear that cry from people.
Well, if they are not eligible, Councilman Goods, within the parameters of the program, we can't help that. We're trying to help the most, starting with the least, with what we have within the parameters.
But then those parameters need to be really clear on that website or whatever, what those parameters are.
Yes, sir. You're saying to make sure that it's clear.
Or making sure it's
that
crystal
the
clear.
residents can understand. I got you.
Crystal clear. Mr. Carlson had something first, Mr. Vieira. Mr. Carlson?
I would just like to make those motions if Mr. Vieira has something in response to this.
I was just going to, if I may, just something quickly, if I may, that something you said that you want to help those the most with the least.
Starting with the least.
Starting with the least, yeah, exactly. Which is, again, I want people to understand that under proposed rent stabilization, whatever it may be, with the city numbers that we've been presented, et cetera, this would, if we pass through every single hurdle that's out there, maybe affect 7, 8, if, again, with the information that we're given, all these stipulations, all this preface, et cetera, percent of applicable renters within the city of Tampa, such a small, because the way this is being presented is as if this is a significant panacea, and it apparently is not, but just that's it. Thank you.
I know it in my mind. I've been around a long time. I know how this is going to play out, but again, I'm listening to councilors talk, and we're talking a good game, but at the end of the day, we're going to be back to square one. That's just my opinion, what I've seen, and I just know that we ain't going to really put a dent in nothing. We're going to put a Band-Aid on something right now, but we still going to have an issue.
Councilman Goods, you mentioned that housing study, and so there's a couple of things. If we were to move forward with the rent stabilization, that's a little different of a study that would require an economist and a consultant to come in and do that. And I want to temper expectations should you move forward with that. That the people that we heard from today, the most vulnerable people that need the help, they want it right now. They need that help right now. And moving forward with rent stabilization is not an immediate fix, and I want to temper expectations that I'm not even sure that we could get a study back by that deadline that you have for you to act on it through two votes, 2 council meetings. to be able to get it to the supervisor of elections. So I just want to temper those expectations. And so the money that you have is what we're going to do right now. But you also need a housing needs assessment. And we've talked about that a little bit. And that talks about housing choices and housing options in the community, not just affordable low-income housing. And so we are requesting, it is my intent to request for the funding for that in the upcoming fiscal year to go ahead and do a housing needs assessment. That housing needs assessment also takes time, but it allows us to strategically plan. Once we have that information combined with our comp plan, you heard that's kicking off and going on today, that allows us to layer the studies that we have and figure out where do we strategically move on housing choices and options. So the housing needs assessment is something that we're gonna move forward with, and providing whatever direction you provide us with on the rent stabilization piece. I just want to make sure that if you do that, those are two separate studies, but it won't happen tomorrow. And we will move forward however council acts, but just understand that we understand the urgency of the matter as well, which is the text amendments that you were gonna hear this afternoon. Some of those also impact affordable housing, like the parking requirements. So every time we come before you and we bring in a text amendment or something, I'm gonna just ask staff to remind you that this too affects the affordable housing options. Thank you.
But I still believe that even you're gonna do the housing needs assessment, I still believe we need an economic study.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is not changing right now. It could be a year out, but what about the following year? We still need the study to say, how do we help, how do we stop, or how do we craft something so we can help our constituents? That's my concern.
You want the tools so that you can make the decision.
I need the tools to make a decision. I need the tools.
Yes, sir.
Mr.
Good.
Can I comment on that and make these motions? I agree with you. You know, it created the Tampa scorecard because we have to look at Tampa's numbers, and we need some kind of economic study that we can track year to year to see if we're having impact too. I mean, with all the money we're spending, all the things we're doing, we know that there's at least a 50,000 unit shortage of affordable housing, and we can count the numbers we're building against that, but we've got to figure out economically what the impact is. For each of these, I'd just like to ask a quick legal question. One of the ideas that came out today and yesterday was 6-month notice to landlords. Morris, do you know if there's any prohibition against anybody? Can we pass an ordinance?
Are you asking if there's a prohibition against us requiring landlords to give a 6-month notice?
Okay, I'd like to move to ask city staff to develop an ordinance that would require landlords to give 6-month notice before raising rents and to present to council for first reading on April 21st.
Oh, that's fair, I like that. Mr. Carlson moves, second by Mr. Maniscalco. Here? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted.
And I think that's just a small example where we would like to listen to the public's ideas. The public has very specific ideas. That's something that could go into effect way before the vote if we approved it. Second, Morris or any attorney, is there any legal meaning of the term housing crisis? I'd like to make a motion that Tampa City Council declare a quote-unquote housing crisis in the city of Tampa and ask the city and CRA staff to meet with the community and report back to council on the May 26th workshop with ideas we can implement immediately to solve the housing problem.
All right, second by Mr. Miranda, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted.
And the idea there is that the reason why it's May 26th is because our schedule's full and we can't do it before then. But what I would encourage everybody to do is everybody in the community, there are obviously a lot of very talented people who have done research on these issues. Please contact us, contact the city with your specific ideas. We just passed one of them, the 6-month notice that we're going to bring back for first reading. We're listening to your ideas. We want to implement them. Just because we can't implement one doesn't mean we can't list the other 9 or 99. We're listening and we want to implement them. Thank you.
Chairman,
you recognize.
I just want to be clear on that motion. When you said because I didn't hear you, and correct me if I'm wrong, on the 26th of May as a workshop session, did you say you were going to bring that back for first reading consideration or just to present to council?
No,
I'm sorry.
Two different. The second one was a workshop. The first one was first come back in April for first reading,
Oh, I see. The April date was the
April 21st, right?
the 21st, Madam Clerk? I'm sorry. Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it.
Ms. Travis? If your office is getting ready to do a needs assessment. I like that piggyback on with the stabilization study, the economic person. I think that needs to be hand in hand with that. That way we don't have to be reaching down the road. If we're gonna do it, let's do it all in one shot. Let's get it all done in one
I
shot.
don't disagree with that. I think that you'll have a more holistic picture to do that. So we'll have to write an RFP and put that together. We can include an economic piece.
Include that in there so we know where we at, and that is, when down the road, we can be able to deal with this stabilization problem, because eventually, I just know we're gonna have to deal with it. And sooner the better to kind of go ahead and get this moving.
One of the things we did, and I'm happy to help you talk to USF or whatever, but we need some kind of index that tracks how rental rates. And I don't know how an economist would do that, but we also need to track it at different tiers if possible.
Sure.
Not just an average, because an average doesn't capture different bands of it. So let's meet with them and figure out if we can.
Sure.
Because if we track that over time, then we can see if certain bands are increasing exponentially and try to address that.
And then once we tracking the rental rates, you can track by license type for a single family duplex, but you also have multifamily that's regulated by the state. So it's going to be a little different, but we'll have someone come in and help aggregate that, but to show a baseline so that we can measure that.
When are you looking at putting that RFP out?
Well, sir, I was going to ask for the money to do it in the upcoming fiscal year. We don't have the funding to do that right now, but we can start drafting.
Don't we have
There's
ARPA,
work that we can do.
Don't we have
internally.
ARPA money?
I'm sorry?
Don't we have ARPA money?
We do, but I am not sure. I'm not prepared to answer the question right now if that can come from ARPA funding. I know that internally, there's work we can do to prepare in writing the RFP and everything that you've talked about today. There's work we can do, so we're not just waiting for funding to come.
We reallocate all the time, so I would say sooner than later, we need to see what that's gonna cost, so this council can go ahead and get that approved, so you can do what you need to do, because the community, they don't understand waiting. They don't understand that.
I understand the urgency of that, and so I was just telling you, I was prepared to do that in October. I understand the urgency, and whatever we can do to accelerate that, we will do.
Mr. Carlson?
And we also have the CRA. I don't know if Morris would allow us to spend any of the CRA money, but that might move it faster if we don't have another bucket. I'd rather use the city bucket, but if we have to. And the other thing is that USF might do this for free or for a low amount, and if we can do it intergovernmental, great. Otherwise, let's do an RP. But I think this is like a $20,000 project, not a $200,000 project. We can hire some sophisticated company out of DC to do it for $200,000 or $300,000. This is an economist looking at basic numbers that are available and coming up with a chart.
I won't make the motion today, but I'll give you a couple weeks to come back to me and tell me what the plan is, and then we'll go from there, because then I'm gonna make a motion, make sure it gets done quicker, sooner than later versus October. We need to get that done way before October, Ms. Travis.
You have my commitment on the record, sir.
Mr. Maniscalco, recognized.
Quick comment. So beginning Tuesday,
Yes,
March
sir.
1st, there will be relief
Yes.
for the people of Tampa in regards to rent because
Yes,
of the
sir.
$1 million that's available.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, we just don't have $1 million. We gave this council and that budget gave plenty of money.
$1 million that's unrestricted, allocated for that. So there's more money that helps, that it's layered money. So the unrestricted helps more people that the federally funded programs federally funded dollars cannot cover. But starting on March 1st, we have that program in place for that $1 million, which is helping the people that we can't help. with the federal funding.
Immediate assistance
Yes,
coming in a few days.
And I apologize, because this is a question that I should not ask, but I'm gonna ask. In your mind,
Oh, boy.
$1 million seems like a lot of money,
But it's not.
but when you have X amount of people going for the million, how many homeowners do you think you're gonna have? Because that's for 1 year, right?
That is for 1 year, and I think it would vary because you have different qualification
understand that.
level. Do you have an estimate of how many people?
So based on the $1 million and just what the average rent prices are, we estimate to help about 50 to 75 people with the $1 million that goes up to the 140. I just will say though, we do have other programs that assist with the same, and we're creating lower barriers and asking that would be able to assist.
And believe me, I don't wanna, I said that because the general public gonna say, $1 million, a lot of us can do it. And the problem is, and I calculated in my mind, it was gonna be about 100, 120.
The problems that was discussed today, what we've heard from the public today, we're talking millions and millions of dollars. And so if you were to ask me to give you a dollar amount to solve it, I'll tell you I need all of it, but we can't do that with government. We're restricted.
And I'm not trying to get it.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. And so just for the public though, that unrestricted funds that council approved in the last budget cycle to help us do this, that opened the door for more people.
Gotcha.
The 50 to 60 applicants that Ms. Henderson is talking about, that's helping the people that do not qualify for the federally funded programs in a different bucket, in a different category. So yes, it's not enough.
And that's why I say we can't wait till October, because people are not gonna understand.
Well, I heard you, and you have my commitment, and you don't have to make a motion on it. I'm gonna come back. No, I'm talking to Councilman Goods. I got you. I'm coming back.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
For the interest of time, we can, thank you.
I'm gonna say this to the citizens as a chairman, you know, we try our best to do what's right. At least I know all of us do. But sometimes our hands do get tied. And really, I don't like my hands being tied. But we've made some motions today. We've got some commitments from the staff, because I know this rent issue is not going away anytime soon, so we have to move on that. There are a lot of issues with the state legislature, but those are the folks y'all need to be talking to and banging on their door, because they're the ones that put these laws and enacted these laws. And we only can do so much. But my commitment, we're going to keep pushing the envelope to do the best we can to try to reallocate dollars if we have to, because we understand there's a situation and it's going to get worse before it gets better. So I just want the citizens to know this council is committed to making sure that we do the right things for our constituents and for Tampa as a whole. But we do know there is a crisis, emergency crisis here. There's no doubt about that. I've said it on record before. I think most councilmen have said that. We do have an emergency crisis. All right, we thank staff, and I think Mr. Cotton's going to come in with a continuance, sir. Sorry about that, sir, but this is a big item that the citizens had to get answers for today.
We're gonna be late for a 501.
We're going to be late.
April 28th, please.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Maniscalco, second by Mr. Miranda for April 28th.
Yes, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted.
And again, and just for the record,
Thank
just so
you,
the clerk has that, is that related to all the items particular on the agenda for the, all of the?
Pardon me? Mr. Shep? I didn't hear you, sir.
I'm sorry, I just want to make clear that the clerk has it for all the items that'll show up on the 28th, is that correct?
Right.
Yes, that's the privately initiated text
Text.
amendment and the publicly initiated text amendments also.
Got that?
Yes,
It's number 8.
number 8, yes,
Number 8.
please.
It's just number 8, correct?
They're all under 8.
They're all under 8. They're all under 8.
Yes.
I guess all those items are under number 8. All right.
Say it 5 times.
All right, move by Mr.
Yeah, no.
I think we'll do the motions tonight.
Thank you, Councilman.
We'll do the motions tonight. Motion receiving file, Mr. Maniscalco, second by Mr. Miranda. All in favor? Aye.
Wait, what?
See you at 501. Don't be late.
We've got some food for you guys. I know you guys are a little hungry. It's gonna be late tonight. Good job, Mr. Carlson. Good job.